Chapter 2080. Senior. This junior is Shui Pei from Xianlu sect. This is Junior's communication talisman. Another Foundation establishment cultivator quickly took it out and respectfully handed it over. Oh, so you are a disciple of Xianlu sect. Xiaohua nodded and said, this old man has seen Taoist Master Bluefeather, Taoist Li Qingxiu, and Taoist Zhiming in Haoming City. Why didn't you go with them? Hearing that Xiaohua had actually seen Taoist Master Bluefeather, Shui Pei's face became even more respectful. He smiled apologetically and said, how could this junior have a place in front of Grandmaster Bluefeather? Didn't this junior just come back from the outside world? Even Marshal Uncle Li and senior brother Zhiming didn't see her. Then he carefully asked, may I know where senior met Grandmaster Bluefeather? He, naturally at the auction. Xiaohua smiled and said, if it was somewhere else, how could this old man have seen her? This junior is Zheng Zhihao from Clear Leaf sect. This is Junior's communication talisman. When the last Foundation establishment cultivator saw that Shui Pei had finished asking, he quickly took the initiative to hand over his communication talisman. The last trace of scruples from before had long disappeared. Clear Leaf sect? This name is somewhat familiar. Where have I heard it before? Xiaohua was slightly stunned. However, he thought for a moment and was sure that he had only seen many cultivators from Meng Country at the Feather Immortal Assembly. He really hadn't met them at other times. Okay, Xiaohua took the 3 communication talismans and said with a smile, if this old man has any matters, I will have to trouble you to wait. We dare not, the 3 smiled and said, for a senior like Senior who saved people without asking for the reason and led the trouble to others, we are willing to serve Senior. Then, the 3 of them took their disciples and flew away. Senior, when it was Jinhua Mountain's turn, Lu Yun, who had always been slightly cold, accompanied Fu Feng and flew in front of Xiaohua with a respectful expression. This junior didn't know that Senior. Fu Feng stuttered. He thought that Xiaohua was just an early Foundation establishment cultivator. He didn't expect that he could actually kill Mo Zhao. This was the strength of a golden core cultivator. He was Senior Fu Feng's senior. Okay, Xiaohua waved his hand. Just when he was about to speak, Fu Shan, who had a flying charm stuck on his body, flew towards him again. He was so scared that he forgot that his flying charm was about to lose its effect. Moreover, he was flying towards the tunnel. He fell from the sky after flying for a few feet. If Xiaohua did not catch him in time and give him a flying charm, he would have fallen into Mo Zhao's mouth. Seeing Fu Shan fly away, Xiaohua looked at this guy with interest. Back then on Jinhua Mountain, Fu Shan had made things difficult for Xiaohua quite a bit. However, from the looks of it now, Fu Shan was just jealous of Xiaohua because of the talisman puppet. How could Xiaohua take it to heart? Junior thanks Senior for saving my life. Fu Shan flew closer, but he didn't dare to get too close. He bowed and saluted with a grateful look. If they weren't in midair, he would have already kowtowed to thank him. Xiaohua flicked his sleeves and said indifferently, it's nothing, not worth mentioning. May I know Senior's name? If you can bestow us with a name, we will definitely remember it. Fu Feng quickly asked, how could Xiaohua tell them his name? He smiled and said, just know that I's surname is Xiao. Why do you need to know my name? Junior understands. Fu Feng replied with a lowered eyebrow. Lu Yun also felt a bit ashamed. She bowed and said, Junior is Jinhua Mountain's guest elder, Lu Yun. Junior thanks Senior for saving my life. Junior had misunderstood Senior before. I hope Senior can forgive me. Don't say any more, Xiaohua waved his hand. I was just casually helping you. It's really troublesome for all of you to go up and thank me one by one. Yes, Junior doesn't dare. Lu Yun thought that her previous coldness had angered Xiaohua. Her face showed a bit of panic as she hurriedly stood up. Fine, Xiaohua saw Lu Yun's appearance. He didn't know whether to explain or not. He could only frown and said, I don't like conventional etiquette. I don't have any other intentions. You all don't need to think too much. After saying that, his body floated up and said, I want to travel in Meng Country. You all can go. Yes, Fu Feng, Lu Yun, Jinhua Mountain, and the others all bowed and said, Farewell, Senior. And Xiao Hua just flew up a few feet and asked casually, "All right, why did you all come so far with your qi refinement cultivation? Did something happen in Ming country?" This. Fu Feng was a bit hesitant. Lu Yun smiled apologetically and said, "I, Jinhua Mountain, have some private matters to deal with in Ming country. Junior and the others need to go to White Bamboo Mountain. Hee. I have no intention to inquire about your whereabouts. I also won't interfere with the matters of Jinhua Mountain's Fu family." Xiaohua was secretly happy. His purpose was obviously to inquire about the whereabouts of Fu Feng and the others. However, he still said, "The Tumiho cultivators who passed through the secret passage seem to be interested in you all. Their cultivation is above Foundation establishment, so I have to remind you all." After saying that, Xiaohua pulled Shui Shui and flew up, disappearing in a direction. "Senior." Fu Feng heard and hurriedly raised his voice. Unfortunately, Xiaohua deliberately avoided him and didn't pay attention to him. Looking at Xiaohua's flying figure, Fu Feng didn't blame Lu Yun for revealing their purpose. He whispered, "Elder Lu, according to Senior Zhao's words, our operation today was leaked. How could we, Jinhua Mountain's Qi refinement cultivators, be coveted by two Foundation establishment cultivators? Could it be that the cultivator surnamed Qiu is Qiu Mingwei?" Qiu Mingwei. Lu Yin also realized and said in surprise, "The Middle Foundation establishment cultivator who fought with our family head several decades ago in Jinhua Mountain? And it's that senior." Fu Feng's face was very gloomy. He was present that day and knew how powerful Qiu Mingwei was. "If this senior follows us, we will be in great danger this time." "But that's not right." Lu Yun frowned and said, "When Qiu Mingwei came to Jinhua Mountain several decades ago, he was already a Middle Foundation establishment cultivator, and his cultivation was already higher than our family head. If he has any ulterior motives, why would he follow us? Wouldn't he be able to kill us with a flip of his hand? We still need to be careful." Fu Feng still shook his head. "In my opinion, we should—" "Elder Fu, are you going to return to Jinhua Mountain?" Lu Yun was surprised. "It's just a cultivator surnamed Qiu. Do we have to take the risk and go through the ink cloud black forest?" Fu Feng's expression changed a few times. He looked at the sky in the distance and seemed to be thinking about something. After a while, he said, "Elder Lu, you don't know. We came to Ming Kingdom this time not only to find Fu Zhu, Fu Puppet, and the corresponding information, but more importantly, Fu Feng didn't dare to neglect the rest of the words and only transmitted them to Lu Yun. There's such a thing?" As a guest elder, Lu Yun obviously didn't know much. Only now did she understand the importance of this trip and couldn't help but cry out, "That's right. If that cultivator is really Qiu Mingwei, then what he covets is the foundation of Jinhua Mountain?" Fu Feng said while gnashing his teeth. Hee. I'm afraid it's not that complicated." Lu Yun thought for a while and said with a smile, "As far as I know, Senior Qiu came to Jinhua Mountain for the Liao family of Gung Mountain and the girl named Liao Xinluan. If Senior Qiu still wants to find trouble with Jinhua Mountain, it must be Liao Xuanlan's idea." Senior Xiao said clearly that there are two Foundation establishment cultivators. One is the partner of the other. If Liao Xinluan is here, how can she be a Foundation establishment cultivator? Besides, if two Foundation establishment cultivators come together, we can't resist any means. Even if the family head is here, it's useless. I don't think this person is Qiu Mingwei." Lu Yun said decisively. "That's strange." Obviously, Lu Yun thought the same as Xiaohua. Fu Feng also realized it and scratched his head. "I don't understand why Senior Xiao said that. Alas, if I knew, I would have told Senior Xiao more. Maybe we hid it from him and made him angry. Otherwise, we could have asked Senior Xiao to help us." Fu Feng said regretfully. "Senior Xiao is a golden core cultivator. How can he care about our trivial matters?" Lu Yun said disapprovingly. "We should think about how to solve it ourselves. Elder Fu, don't say that the family head doesn't have a backup plan." That's natural," Fu Feng said with a smile. "When the family head was traveling in Ming country, he had two good friends. There are also foundation establishment cultivators. Moreover, they are from main countries' cultivation families. If we ask them to back us up, we should be able to scare away this foundation establishment cultivator who might be Senior Chio. That's good, Lu Yun said while clapping her hands. Immediately, the people from Jinhua Mountain flew toward the south of Ming country. Damn it, I almost ruined it with just one sentence. Xiao Hua sat cross-legged a few li away. He used his divine sense to check the area. After Fu Feng and the others flew away, he let out a sigh of relief and said, "If they turned back to Jinhua Mountain, it would be hard for me to find a suitable one. Who knows if the white bamboo mountain they talked about is real or fake?" "Husband, you seem to be very interested in this Jinhua Mountain," Shui said with some confusion. Jinhua Mountain is considered a talisman-making family. However, they are currently in a decline. Compared to my Misty Mountain and Flying Phoenix Mountain, they are still lacking a lot. You don't know?" Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Your husband has some stories in Jinhua Mountain." Is that so?" Shui's eyes lit up. She said with a smile, "I'm all ears." "Good," Xiao Huan nodded. "Let's talk as we walk." Several months later, in the south of Ming country, in an endless grassland, two figures flew through the sky. They flew past the faint dark clouds and rushed toward the towering mountain in the distance. These two people were Xiao Hua and Shui. Ming country was somewhat different from Shi country. There were more grasslands and mountain ranges. Relatively speaking, there were fewer lakes, rivers, and barren hills and rivers. Moreover, there were many small cities in Ming country. Some of them were occupied by secular people. Some of them were occupied by cultivation families. And there were even more than 10 cities controlled by cultivation sects. Along the way, Xiaohua and Shui passed through mostly small cities. There were very few big cities. Of course, they were tailing the disciples of Jinhua Mountain. Presumably, they were trying to cover their tracks. Chapter 2081. In the past few months, Xiaohua had also made some inquiries. White Bamboo Mountain was located in the south of Ming country. It was not a famous mountain range, and there was only one cultivation family and a small sect around it. Although Fu Feng and the others had concealed their tracks, they had always been heading towards White Bamboo Mountain. They had even inquired about the movements of White Bamboo Mountain. So, Xiaohua was certain that the disciples of Jinhua Mountain were going to White Bamboo Mountain. Today, after Fu Feng and the others came out of the transmission array, they rested in a small town and bought some gifts in the small town. Obviously, they were going to meet someone. Xiaohua and Shui did not want to wait for long, so they flew out first. They were already very close to White Bamboo Mountain, so Xiaohua could find the corresponding tracks himself. "Husband, you said that the two foundation establishment cultivators might be disloyal to the disciples of Jinhua Mountain, but along the way, we have not seen any traces of them. We have already arrived at White Bamboo Mountain. Why haven't they appeared?" Shui stood in the air and asked very leisurely. Xiaohua was a little embarrassed and said with a smile, Yuchun did not say clearly. How would I know? Maybe the two foundation establishment cultivators asked too many questions, making Yuchun feel that there is a problem. Right? It has been several months. How is your practice of the cultivation method? When will you take the Ling Lei Dan? No hurry, Shui said with a charming smile. Could it be that my husband is in a hurry to dual cultivate with me? No. Xiaohua touched his nose and said, even if I want to, I can't say it now. I've been practicing for several months, and I feel that this cultivation method is more and more powerful, Shui said with a serious expression. At this time, my meridians have already expanded a little. If I practice again, I think it can still expand. I want to lay a good foundation for qi, refining meridians, before foundation establishment. Xiaohua originally wanted to say, after foundation establishment, this dragon transformation art can still be practiced, and your meridians can also expand. But when the words came to his mouth, he stopped. After all, everyone's cultivation was different, and Shui wanted to be steady. So he said with a smile, it doesn't matter, your husband still has the same words. You can slowly cultivate, and your husband will accompany you until the day foundation establishment. My husband is the best. Shue Shue smiled sweetly, and then she lowered her head and said, Unfortunately, no one in this world is as fortunate as I am. Just think about that talisman puppet. For the sake of being suitable, she gave her body to another, yet she still couldn't obtain the love she desired. When I see someone suitable, I'll really ask him properly. Yes, it's more than that. Ever since Xiao Hua told her about his experience in Jinhua Mountain, Shue Shue had endless sympathy for the talisman puppet. She kept mentioning it, so how could Xiao Hua refute her? He added, Songcheng is Fu Zhu and Fu Ba's biological siblings. Since they've been intimate with each other, I like to see how Songcheng will handle this. Are Fu Zhu and Fu Puppet really that beautiful? Shue Shue rolled her eyes and asked, Back then, did you also have a plan in mind? When you enter Mount Jinhua, did you not think that you would find such a beautiful dual cultivation partner and stay in Mount Jinhua for the rest of your life? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. This question didn't seem to be the first time he'd asked, right? Thus, Xiao Hua rubbed his nose and replied righteously, All right, I'll let my wife know. Back then, your husband didn't think too much. I only thought about cultivation. If you want to make a name for yourself, any kind of beauty is nothing in front of you. Puffed. Shue Shue laughed and said, I don't believe you. You said it yourself. Songcheng is extremely handsome. Fu Zhu and Fu Ba simply don't like you. My wife, Xiao Hua, said awkwardly, It's fine as long as you know this. Why bring it out to attack your husband? Isn't your husband just a little less handsome than Songcheng? Besides, my wife already knows, so why ask me every time? Hee, I just want to see if your answer is the same every time. Shue Shue covered her mouth and laughed. But at this time, Xiao Hua didn't respond as expected. Instead, he frowned and lowered his head to look at the ground. Husband, Shue Shue asked curiously. At the same time, she also looked down. However, under their feet was a withered and yellow grassland. Mottled yellow soil could be seen from the withered grass. It was as ugly as a child's head. Shue Shue was very puzzled. She also swept out her divine sense. However, other than withered grass and yellow soil, there was still nothing special. Husband, Shue Shue raised her voice and asked, What's there to see here? Could it be that my husband found the traces of those two foundation establishment cultivators? No, Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with a strange light. He shook his head and said, Ever since Imo Zhao and the Black Forest, I haven't seen those two people. Then why did you? Shue Shue asked. Oh, my wife. Xiao Hua pointed at the withered grassland and asked, This grassland is so barren. Don't you think it's very strange? Shue Shue was stunned. She looked again and shook her head. Husband, I don't feel anything strange. It's already midsummer. It's the time when the rain is moistened. This grassland should be lush with water and grass, cattle and sheep everywhere. However, look, it's all barren. Where did the cattle and sheep come from? Then where did the shepherds go? Xiao Hua patiently explained. Shue Shue was even more puzzled. She muttered, This, I don't know. Moreover, where the shepherds went, does it have anything to do with us? Yes, the grassland was barren and the cattle and sheep were missing. What did it have to do with Shue Shue? What did it have to do with cultivation? How could Shue Shue know? Come with me. Xiao Hua knew what Shue Shue was thinking. He swept his divine sense and flew towards another direction. Although Shue Shue was puzzled, she still followed. They flew for dozens of miles and arrived at a hilly area. It was a mountainous area. On the hillside, there were layers of cultivated fields. They were like stairs that extended from the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain. However, at this time, in the cultivated fields, there were cracks from the top of the mountain to the foot of the mountain. The cracks were like dry human skin. Where was the appearance of a cultivated field? In the barren, cultivated fields, not to mention the crops, even the grasses were in 2s and 3s. Seeing the deep compassion in Xiao Hua's eyes, Shue Shue was very puzzled. Just as she was about to speak, Xiao Hua raised his head again. He sped up and landed halfway on a hill. On this hill, there was a solitary straw shed. Beside the straw shed, there was a huge rock. Beside the rock, there was a small well. Shui Shui didn't know what Xiao Hua was doing. She silently fell behind Xiao Hua and followed him to the straw shed. The straw shed was very simple and crude. There were only a few crooked branches and some scattered withered grass. Turning around the straw shed, they saw a piece of cultivated field that was several zhang in size. Inside, there were a dozen or so tender seedlings standing there listlessly. However, Xiao Hua's gaze swept across the field and landed on the straw shed. He couldn't help but feel a piercing pain in his heart. Chapter 2082. Shui Shui casually glanced around and was immediately shocked. She covered her mouth with her hand and looked inside with her eyes wide open in disbelief. There was only a shabby straw mat in the straw hut. On the mat, there was a 2-chi-tall baby boy lying on his back. Well, rather than calling it a baby boy, it was better to call a skeleton. Because the child's head was big, his eyes were sunken, there was no flesh on his face, and his skin was tightly stuck to his bones. He didn't wear any clothes, his ribs were bulging, his little arms and legs were curled up, and his bones were exposed. If it wasn't for his chest rising and falling, Shui Shui would have thought that this baby was dead just by looking at him with the naked eye. Pitiful, Xiao Hua sighed and continued to walk forward. Beside the straw hut was a ridge in the fields. An old man in ragged clothes was squatting there weakly, looking at the dozen or so seedlings in front of him with lifeless eyes. Xiao Hua and Shui Shui's voices had already alarmed the old man. However, the old man indifferently raised his head and glanced at them. His turbid eyes were cold, and he lowered his head again. "Sir." Xiao Hua walked forward and bowed. "Sir." Shui Shui once again saw that Xiao Hua was different. She understood that although Xiao Hua's face was very light, he might not be much younger than the old man. There is no need for him to be so respectful. "Little brother, what's the matter?" The old man seemed to be unwilling to pay attention to Xiao Hua. He didn't even look at Xiao Hua and said in a low voice. That voice seemed to be in his throat, as if he was afraid of wasting energy. "Sir." Xiao Hua's words were stuck in his mouth. He didn't know where to start. After thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua turned to Shui Shui and said, "Wife, do you have anything to eat in your storage bag?" Yes, Shui Shui hurriedly said. She clapped her hands and took out a jade bottle and handed it to Xiao Hua. "What is this?" Xiao Hua frowned. "Fasting pill," Shui Shui hurriedly said. Sigh. Xiao Hua shook his head and said, "This thing can only be used for fasting. It can't support the consumption of ordinary people." "Oh!" Shui's face slightly reddened. She understood Xiao Hua's meaning and said in a low voice, "I haven't eaten for a long time. How can I have such things?" Shui's eyes lit up as she reminded him. "My husband, although we don't have any food, spirit fruits should be edible." "That's right." Xiao Hua slapped his forehead and waved his hand, taking out several different spirit fruits. After tasting them one by one, his mouth actually gradually became bitter. The spiritual light in his space was abundant, and all the spiritual fruits were full of spiritual qi. This was extremely good for cultivators, but how could these ordinary people eat them? Not to mention the old man and the baby whose bodies were on the verge of collapse. "What should we do?" Xiao Hua scratched his head. He was clear in his heart that the old man's situation was better, but the baby was in danger. Even if he could fly back to the city to find food, the baby wouldn't be able to wait for him to return. "Why don't we take the baby and leave?" Xiao Hua's heart was filled with compassion. "My husband," Shui clapped her hands and took out several dried spirit jujubes. She said in a low voice, "This is what I took out to satisfy my cravings in Xuanlei Palace in the early years. Do you think it's okay?" "Great." Xiao Hua reached out to take the spirit jujubes and kissed Shui's face. He said with a smile, "Today, 2 lives were saved by you." Seeing Shui's beaming face, Xiao Hua took a bite of the spirit jujube and handed it to the old man. He said with a smile, "Old man, you can eat this spirit jujube first. This little one can slowly ask you." The old man's turbid eyes flashed with a trace of luster. He waved his dark, thin, and dirty hand and grabbed the spirit jujubes. He opened his mouth and was about to throw them into his mouth. Old man Xiao Hua hurriedly blocked the old man's hand, as if he didn't dislike the filth on his hand. He said in a low voice, "You can only eat this thing bite by bite, and you can only eat half of it." The old man glanced at Xiao Hua. He hesitated for a moment, then picked one out with his finger and gently bit off a piece of meat with his teeth. Xiao Hua carefully observed the old man, fearing that there would be some problem with this spirit jujube. But after the old man chewed for a while, he actually couldn't swallow it and struggled to get up from the ground. The old man didn't have much strength now. How could he stand steadily? He staggered and was about to fall again. Xiao Hua hurriedly supported him and asked, "Old man, where are you going?" The old man didn't answer and rushed towards the straw hut. Xiao Hua secretly sighed. He supported the old man with one hand and followed him into the straw hut. Sure enough, the old man hurriedly arrived in front of the infant boy and knelt on the ground with a potong sound. He bent down and used his mouth to pass the jujube meat that he had just chewed into the infant's mouth. As soon as the fragrant jujube meat entered the infant's mouth, the infant greedily chewed. After chewing a few times, the infant's slightly trembling lips stopped and a trace of bitterness appeared on his face. But immediately, he hurriedly chewed again. Obviously, the infant used his only baby teeth to bite his lips. Immerse slowed down. "Grandpa still has more here," the old man said in a low voice. He hurriedly took another bite of the jujube meat and wanted to feed it to the infant again. Xiao Hua's heart was incomparably bitter. He also squatted down and said warmly, "Old man, the infant's life is no longer in danger. He can't eat too much of this jujube meat. You should eat it first." And when the old man heard this, he looked at the infant's small tongue that was greedily licking his lips. He wanted to give more to the infant, but he was afraid that something might go wrong. He looked at Xiao Hua. With Xiao could hear, "I won't let anything happen to the infant." Xiao Hua said again, "Woo." The old man whimpered and finally swallowed the jujube meat that he had chewed for a long time. Sure enough, as soon as the jujube meat entered his stomach, it immediately rushed to his four limbs and bones like a flood. An incomparable comfort spread through his body, and his four limbs suddenly had strength. The old man was wild with joy. He looked at the infant again, and his eyes also opened. He even wanted to sit up. "Thank you, immortal elder." The old man no longer ignored him and bowed his head. "Don't." Xiao Hua hurriedly grabbed the old man and said with a smile, "Old man, you should eat another bite. There's no need to keep it all. Later, I will think of a way for you." Yes, the old man's own thoughts were exposed, and he heard that Xiao Hua actually wanted to think of a way for him. His eyes lit up, and he reluctantly ate another bite of the spirit jujube. After the old man finished eating the spirit jujube, he slightly closed his eyes and rested for a moment. The infant boy also sat up. Because of his skinny body, his large eyes looked around randomly. From time to time, he would look at Shue and then at Xiao Hua. This old man's name is Fan Nong. This is this old man's grandson, Ing Er. The old man rested and bowed. "This old man thanks Immortal Elder and Immortal Elder for your great kindness. I also ask Immortal Elder to bestow names. This old man and grandson will definitely set up a longevity tablet for Immortal Elder and Immortal Elder, and we will worship you every day." Xiao Hua flicked his sleeve and said, "I's name is Xiao Hua. This is I's lover, Shue. As for the longevity tablet, let's talk about it later. Old man, first tell I, why is this place so barren?" It's hard to explain in a few words." Fan Nong sighed. He pointed down the mountain and said, "This old man lives in the Fan Manor at the foot of the mountain." Following Fan Nong's finger, in a depression in the foot of the mountain, there was a village. Scattered villages were scattered around in twos and threes. And Xiao Hua casually scanned with his divine sense and was about to ask again. But at this moment, Xiao Hua's face slightly changed, and he angrily said, "Bastard." As he spoke, Xiao Hua's figure suddenly flew up and quickly rushed down the mountain. That speed was definitely something Shue Shue had never seen before. Husband. Shue Shue covered her mouth again. She looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief as his figure disappeared into one of the villages in the Fan Manor. A moment later, Xiao Hua flew back again. His left hand was holding a baby in swaddling clothes, and his right hand was holding a skinny woman. The woman's eyes were tightly closed, and she seemed to have fainted. Husband, why is that? Shue Shue asked curiously. Xiao Hua's face was very ugly. He didn't answer Shue Shue and handed the baby to Fan Nong and said, "Old man, feed some of those dates to the baby." And, although Fan Nong was somewhat reluctant, he didn't dare to disobey Xiao Hua's words. He took a small bite of the date meat and chewed it up to feed it to the baby. At the same time, Xiao Hua pointed at the woman. The woman sitting on the ground opened her eyes. However, the woman's face was ashen and there was no light in her eyes. She glanced at Xiao Hua and then at the baby in Fan Nong's hand. "Let this Xiao ask you," Xiao Hua said coldly. "Since ancient times, even an evil tiger wouldn't eat its cubs. Why did you kill your own baby?" Shue Shue was shocked and looked at the dark and skinny woman in disbelief. The woman didn't pay attention to Xiao Hua and struggled to get up. However, after moving a few times, she didn't seem to have any strength. She sat down again, and her ash-white eyes turned a few times, and a trace of ridicule appeared. That ridicule angered Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua said coldly, "This Xiao knows that you have been starving for a long time. If you don't eat, you will die. However, can you bear to eat your own flesh and blood? Are you still human?" "Ha ha ha ha." The woman laughed mournfully. "Of course I'm not human. Why would I be human?" Saying this, she threw herself on the ground and wept weakly. Daoist Xiao. Fan Nong saw this and said in a low voice, "I'm afraid Daoist Xiao has misunderstood Qian Shi. She and Qian Er have always been filial. This wants to use the child to feed his mother, right?" Shue Shue couldn't help but exclaim. Then what about Qian Er? "I'll let Fairy Xuen know," Fan Nong said mournfully. "If this old man's guess is correct, Qian Er, I'm afraid, is already in his mother's stomach." Shue Shue didn't exclaim this time. Her right hand trembled slightly, and her eyes flashed with an indescribable brilliance. This Xiao was wrong. Hearing this, Xiao Hua's divine sense immediately swept out again. He saw an old woman lying on the ground in the village house on the verge of death. He sighed and bowed towards Qian Shi. "How could you immortals be wrong? It's all us mortals who are wrong." Qian Shi didn't seem to appreciate it and said coldly, "Even if we ate our own flesh and blood, if there weren't any spirit stones, you definitely wouldn't do anything. You are naturally free and unfettered. Why would you care about our lives? Now, even if you save my boy, can you save this Nujia? Can you save this Nujia's mother? Can you save the dozens of old and young in my Fan Manor? Can you revive the villagers who starved to death?" Chapter 2083. Qian Shi's words were weak, but when Xiao Hua heard every word, for some reason, he felt ashamed in his heart. Yes, he was a golden core cultivator and could kill cultivators with low cultivation at will. He could fly in the sky and burrow into the ground, carefree and unfettered, and could view mortals as ants. But what did that count for? In this world, would he be able to save the common people? What was the use of cultivators' cultivation? Shue Shue was even more unbearable. She had never faced this mortal world and had never seen such a cruel situation. She also never thought that under the same blue sky, while she was dancing with her lover, there were many mortals in the mortal world who were in an abyss of suffering, on the brink of death, in a situation where they had to eat raw human flesh to fill their stomachs. In the time it took to smoke a cigarette, Qian Shi's sobs had gradually stopped due to her lack of strength. Xiao Hua then came to his senses and sighed. "Excellent. Although I am powerless to reverse the situation now, I will definitely cultivate with all my might and hope that there will be a day when I have the power to reverse the situation. Moreover, today, with my ability, I will definitely spare your lives." Yes, if they were mortals, how could they have any methods? Only cultivators had the power to resist this natural disaster. The stronger Xiao Hua was, the more authority he had to speak. Can you make rain? Can you make rice grow in a barren land? Qian Shi asked again. Even the immortal elders of Misty Cloud's sect wouldn't dare to boast like this, right? Ha ha! At this moment, Xiao Hua was even more enlightened. He knew that there must be some secrets that he didn't know. So he laughed and said, "Since I said it, I will definitely be able to do it. Let's not talk about anything else. Let's save you first. Husband, I will stay here to take care of things. You should quickly go to U City to buy food. With husband's speed, you will be able to return quickly." Shui said anxiously. Food. Xiao Hua muttered to himself for a moment. Then his eyes lit up and he said with a smile, "Why is it so troublesome? Moreover, if I leave, I'm afraid that many people will die in a short while." After saying that, Xiao Hua waved his hand, and the dozen or so half-dead seedlings in Fan Nong's field were collected into his space. Then, he flew in front of Fan Nong and said with a smile, "Old man, come with this Xiao. Let's first rescue the dead people in your Fan manor." "Yes, I will follow your orders." Fan Nong returned the baby to Mrs. Qian, stood up, and smiled apologetically. Thus, Xiao Hua grabbed Fan Nong's collar and flew down mountain. In the time it took to eat a meal, Xiao Hua brought Fan Nong back to the farmland. Shui hurriedly stepped forward and asked, "Husband, what's the situation?" Xiao Hua had a bitter smile on his face as he replied, "There are only a few spirit jujubes, and there are too many people who are about to die. Your husband can only choose a few seriously hungry old men or infant boy. I can't take care of the others for the time being." "Then what should we do?" Shui was originally kind. Previously, she treated the common people like ants. Although she didn't pity the common people like Xiao Hua, she still became anxious and said, "Husband, you should hurry and go. This concubine will guard this place. I definitely won't let any of them die. Wife, do you have any good methods?" Xiao Hua's eyes brightened, and he said with a smile, "Could it be that you still have some snacks from Sun Lei Palace?" Shui's face reddened, and she vigorously shook her head. "AI, we can be considered to have some success in our cultivation." Xiao Hua sighed. "However, all of our magic arts are offensive, and all of them are for self-protection." "What kind of magic art can help others? Can it save people?" After saying that, Xiao Hua swung his big sleeve and used the water spike technique. A large area of blue ice spikes appeared and lined up in midair. Following Xiao Hua's hand seals, balls of water condensed on the farmland. These balls of water contained abundant heaven and earthling qi, and their offensive power was also shocking. However, how could these balls of water nourish the soil? Even if they nourished the several zhang of land in front of them, what about the terraced fields of the entire mountain range? What about the entire Fan Manor's farmland? A feeling of powerlessness spontaneously arose in his heart. Amitabha, Xiao Hua involuntarily chanted the name of Buddha in his heart and sat cross-legged. "Husband," Shui saw that not only did Xiao Hua not leave to search for food, but he also sat cross-legged. She couldn't help but be shocked. However, she had always regarded Xiao Hua as her leader, so she definitely wouldn't say anything that went against Xiao Hua. Therefore, she only hesitated for a moment before stopping. On the side, Qian Shi had already heard Fan Nong's words and knew that her mother-in-law had already been saved by Xiao Hua. Panic and gratitude appeared on her dark and thin face, and her eyes were filled with incomparable love as she looked at the child in her arms. Those tears flowed down. If it weren't for the fact that she had no other choice, how could she take her own child? Very quickly, several hours passed, and the sky was already dark. Xiao Hua was still regulating his breathing. Fan Nong's grandson was hungry again, and he hid in Fan Nong's arms and gnashed his teeth. Qian Shi lifted her lapel and used her thin and shriveled breast to feed the child. However, she also hadn't eaten for a long time and was barely surviving on grass. How could she have breast to feed the child? And the child was just used to sucking. He hadn't tasted breast for a long time. Wah wah. The infant boy wept powerlessly, and Qian Shi gently coaxed him. Chapter 2084. And just wait for me. Xiao Hua helped the two of them up and said to Shui, "Wife, I'll have to trouble you to take care of the rice. Your husband will go out and find some food." Okay. Shui was happy to see that she could help. She urged Xiao Hua to leave while she put the rice into her storage pouch and flew back to Fan Manor with Madame Qian and the others. Not to mention Fan Nong and the people of Fan Manor taking care of the rice. Xiao Hua flew into the sky with a heavy heart and flew towards the city. His mind entered the space again. At this time, many puppets were moving. They were reclaiming the remaining land in the space piece by piece. On each piece of land, there was a puppet responsible for planting rice and harvesting rice. Xiao Hua's space was originally conducive to the growth of spiritual plants. Ordinary rice like this could mature in just a few hours. However, the rice seedlings that Xiao Hua obtained from Fan Nong's terraced fields were too little. Moreover, although Xiao Hua asked Fan Nong how to plant rice, it was different from the planting method in his memory. He had no choice but to use the pond water that he obtained from Imo Zhao Black Forest to form paddy fields. Then, he began to use the puppets to try to plant rice clumsily. These pitiful puppets, that ordinary aura refining cultivators, trembled in fear when they saw them. At this time, they were actually doing the work of a peasant. If Mo Qingyuan knew, he would probably fly over from the North Desert to fight Xiao Hua. Alas, there's still not enough puppets. Xiao Hua pulled his mind out of the space and sighed. These rice can't save many people. It's better to go find food. Xiao Hua left for an entire night. The next day, when the sun was high in the sky, Xiao Hua returned to Fan Manor with a worried expression. At this time, Fan Zhuang had already recovered some of its vitality. Many of the more robust farmers were processing the rice in the paddy field. When they saw Xiao Hua flying over, they all threw down their farming tools and kowtowed. They thanked Daoist Xiao. The corners of Xiao Hua's mouth curled into a smile. He used his big sleeve to help everyone up, and with a wave of his hand, he took out piles and piles of grains and piled them on the ground. Moreover, in the midst of everyone's cheers, he took out several cows from his spirit storage pouch. Alas, it's really hard on Xiao Hua. He's actually still thinking about those babies who were drinking milk in his heart. Perhaps the shriveled black and skinny from last night had left an unforgettable mark in his heart. Husband, Shui's face was also filled with joy as she flew over. Clearly, she was very satisfied with helping the world and saving people yesterday. However, when she saw the worried expression on Xiao Hua's face, she was slightly stunned. She turned and asked in a low voice, "What's going on? Didn't he already get the food? How?" Alas, Xiao Hua sighed and replied, "All along the way, we only coveted the beautiful scenery and were free and unfettered, and we've never paid attention to the hardships of the mortal world. Last night, I didn't dare to fly too far away, so I only checked around the city. This disaster seems to be much more serious than we thought." "Husband, what do you mean?" Shui's face tightened as she asked anxiously. "It's not just the Fan Manor that's suffering from the disaster. There are many places around you city that are suffering from the disaster." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "It's just that the Fan Manor is extremely inconvenient. Fan Nong and the others can't travel far. So many people have starved to death. Although other places are on the verge of collapse, there are still people starving to death." "The food?" Shui asked quietly. Xiao Hua smiled. "I found all of these with my divine sense. They belong to those rich families." While the current season is still good, we will be able to harvest a season of crops before winter. Reverend Xiao Hua, you're an otherworldly person. You actually know about my farming?" Fan Yunxiao said in astonishment. Xiao Hua didn't explain, but Fan Yunxiao's face was bitter. He said in a low voice, "It's not that my Fan Manor's children are lazy. Even if the rice is planted, if there's no rain, the rice won't grow." "Oh," Xiao Hua nodded. After thinking for a moment, he asked, Fan Manor's drought. How long has it been? AI. It's hard to explain in a few words. Fan Yunxiao sighed. He found a place to sit down and tirelessly explain the cause of the matter. It turned out that Fan Manor used to be a place with plenty of food. Although it was inconvenient to move around in the surrounding 10 li, the weather was good and there weren't any special disasters. However, 10 years ago, the weather began to change. Now and then, there would be floods and droughts. It was no longer the same weather as before. Last year, it was even more serious. There wasn't even a drop of rain. Fan Manor's old folks didn't even have a harvest. They even had to take out the seeds they had stored for many years to eat. Fan Nong, whom Xiao Hua first saw, could only rely on the water from the well on the mountain to barely preserve some seedlings of rice. Moreover, according to Fan Yunxiao, there was a cultivation sect near Yu City called the Misty Cloud Sect. They once came to Fan Manor and said that as long as the people of Fan Manor paid a certain amount of spirit stones every year, they could guarantee that there would be rain in Fan Manor's terraced fields. However, Fan Manor's secular people didn't have any spirit stones. After pleading to no avail and taking out gold and silver, the Misty Cloud Sect's cultivators left. What made Xiao Hua most angry was that a month ago, the Misty Cloud Sect's cultivators came once. Even though they saw Fan Manor's miserable state, they still didn't show any expression. They coldly looked at them for a few times and didn't even say a word before flying away. It was precisely because of this that Qianshi looked at Xiao Hua with such cold eyes. Because in her heart, all cultivators were cold and indifferent, treating them as if they were nothing. Misty Cloud Sect? Xiao Hua slightly frowned. He didn't seem to have heard of this Meng country's cultivation sect from the cultivators. It should be a small sect, but they could actually make rain. They could do something that Xiao Hua, a gold core cultivator, couldn't do. Could it be they were swindled? Xiao Hua stroked his chin and frowned as he pondered. But thinking about it, even if the Misty Cloud Sect's disciples wanted to swindle, there was no need to swindle these secular people. Elder Fan, Xiao Hua asked, this Misty Cloud Sect's cultivators can really make rain? Have you seen it before? This old man doesn't have any spirit stones here, so naturally I haven't seen it before, Fan Yunxiao said with sweat. However, I've heard from people far away that when the Misty Cloud Sect's immortals wave their hands, countless clouds would fly out from their sleeves. The clouds could cover the entire mountain. I know that when the immortals blow, the clouds can make rain. And this Xiao understands. Xiao Hua slightly nodded and transmitted his voice to Shui. This way, the Misty Cloud Sect must have a magic treasure that can move clouds and make rain. The Misty Cloud Sect's disciples are guarding this gift from the heavens, but they don't favor the living beings. Then this husband will go and take that magic treasure and make rain for the living beings. Usually, Xiao Hua was silent and sometimes even deliberately hid his strength and did not reveal it. But at this time, for the sake of irrelevant people, he was actually full of lofty sentiments. Shui's eyes unconsciously lit up. She couldn't help but deepen her admiration for her sweetheart. This concubine will wait here. Shui knew that she would only cause trouble if she went, so she said with a smile, wait for my husband's triumphant return. Indefinitely, Xiao Hua said with a smile. This husband will definitely step on 7-colored auspicious clouds and return with rain and dew. Seeing Xiao Hua's relaxed appearance, Shui's heart also relaxed. She knew that Xiao Hua was very confident in himself. Moreover, when she thought of the lightning escape technique that Xiao Hua revealed yesterday, she saw that it was much faster than her master Sun Ming. Even if he couldn't succeed, escaping with his life wouldn't be a problem. Shui only said, be careful, my husband, before sending Xiao Hua away. When Xiao Hua flew out of Yu City, his face showed a dignified expression. He had inquired clearly in Yu City. The Misty Cloud Sect was indeed not a big sect, but a small sect on the Green Cloud Mountain far away from Yu City. However, the sect master of this small sect was not simple. He was a late-stage Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator. However, this was not the key point that Xiao Hua was worried about. The Misty Cloud Sect was slightly different from other sections. They had inherited the ancient talisman crafting technique. It was said that the sect could refine extremely powerful talismans. Of course, this was only a rumor because the sect master of the Misty Cloud sect, Yun Tongyu, was only a late-stage Foundation establishment realm cultivator. No matter how powerful his talisman crafting technique was, he was not Xiao Hua's opponent. However, the problem was that Xiao Hua wanted to find out the secret of the Misty Cloud sect's technique, so he had to face the entire Misty Cloud sect. Xiao Hua couldn't really treat the cultivators as nothing and flatten the Misty Cloud sect. Chapter 2085. Xiao Hua naturally had a plan to appease them. He wanted to use spirit stones and other things to solve the problem. However, the information he heard made him nervous. Because Misty Cloud sect's talisman-making technique was passed down from the distant past era, it had more history than Mount Jinhua's Fu clan and even the Qiqiao sect that Xiao Hua knew of. Xiao Hua only knew that right now, the Misty Cloud sect was the same as the Fu family of Jinhua Mountain. They relied on selling yellow talismans and making simple spirit talismans to maintain the sect's livelihood. That technique of moving clouds and summoning rain was the unique skill that the Misty Cloud sect relied on to survive. Misty Cloud sect wouldn't give up so easily. In fact, it was funny. Although Xiao Hua didn't inquire too clearly about the cloud summoning rain technique that Fan Yin Xiao and the others talked about, it seemed similar to Misty Cloud sect's yellow talisman called Condensing Rain Talisman. This Condensing Rain Talisman could condense water-type spiritual energy within a certain range according to a cultivator's magic power. Its offensive power couldn't even compare to Icicle Talisman. This kind of talisman, which was worthless in the eyes of cultivators, actually became Misty Cloud sect's tool to snatch food from the nearby secular world. Of course, occasionally, cultivators would also ask Misty Cloud sect's disciples to summon rain and clouds near their own immortals' caves to maintain the scenery. At this time, there were several aura-refining disciples on duty on Mount Jinhua. A young disciple muttered, "Senior Marshal Brother, outsiders won't come to our Mount Jinhua. Why are we on duty? It's better to take the Condensing Rain Talisman out for a walk. Maybe we can even earn 1 or 2 spirit stones." You only know how to earn spirit stones." Another slightly older disciple scolded. The day before yesterday, 6th Junior Marshal Brother sneaked out. It just so happened that Mount Jinhua's Fu clan came to visit, leaving no one to guard our Misty Cloud sect's gate. We let a cultivator clan from the country of Shi laugh at us. It really made Sect Head lose face. Sect Head just punished 6th Junior Marshal Brother. "It's only been a few days, and you're already itching for a beating? Senior Marshal Brother, isn't this just a coincidence?" That disciple smiled apologetically and said, "I haven't seen a bird fly over here for half a month. Who knew that someone would come that day?" After saying that, that disciple curled his lips and said, "That's right. It's just a cultivator clan, but they actually came to invite our Mount Jinhua for some private matter." The sect leader had no choice. The senior brother shook his head and said, "According to the martial uncles, Fu Yunbo from the Golden Mount Hua used to be good friends with the sect leader. Moreover, they have a very deep relationship. Even if the sect leader doesn't go, he will send 2 senior brothers or even martial uncles." Do you know if they brought enough spirit stones?" That disciple nodded and said, "The sect leader hasn't given out any spirit stones for a few months. This kid's medicinal pills have already run out." "I'm afraid not." The senior brother shook his head. Otherwise, a few martial uncles would have followed them. Since he's still on the mountain and hasn't left, it means that he hasn't reached an agreement yet. Senior brother, I heard that 6th senior brother went to Mount Shiming the day before yesterday and bought a few Peiyuan pill in Yu City with 2 spirit stones. TSK, he is really lucky. Shi Mingshan, that rich man with the surname Chun. That senior brother also smacked his lips and said his family has a lot of farmland. 2 spirit stones is already a cheap price. Look, senior brother, there's another guest. The young disciple's eyes were sharp. He had already seen Xiao Hua flying over from afar, and hurriedly shouted, "It's really him." That senior brother turned his head and looked, then said curiously, "What's going on with our Misty Clouds sect these days? Why do we have guests one after another? Oh, this cultivator is actually a Foundation Establishment senior. Hurry!" Xiaohua's flying speed was very fast. Under that senior brother's hurried urging, Xiaohua had already flown in front of them. Without waiting for Xiaohua to land, several disciples stepped forward and bowed. Junior greets Senior. "May I know why Senior has come to our Misty Clouds sect?" "I, Xiaohua, have come to pay a visit to your sect leader, Yin Tungyuyan." Xiaohua came with a smile and said warmly, "Senior Xiao, please wait a moment. Junior will send a message." The Misty Clouds sect disciple quickly took out a messaging talisman and said a few words before sending it in. In a moment, a vigorous figure flew over. It was a Foundation Establishment middle-stage cultivator. That cultivator's cheeks were thin and long, his skin was slightly pale, and his eyes were slightly narrowed. He seemed to be somewhat sleepy. "I, Yin Xinglai, greets fellow Taoist Xiao." That cultivator landed on the ground and also politely cupped his hands in greeting. "I, Xiaohua, have some private matters to discuss with your sect leader Yin. Fellow Taoist Yin, please lead the way." Xiaohua returned the greeting and still called himself Xiaohua. He didn't mention his sect, which clearly meant that this trip had nothing to do with his sect. Seeing Xiaohua's calm appearance, Yin Qinglai slightly frowned. However, since Xiaohua didn't mention his sect, he could only smile and say, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, please follow. I thank you for your trouble." After Xiaohua finished speaking, he flew behind Yin Qinglai and entered Green Cloud Mountain. Along the way, Xiaohua slightly released his divine sense and gradually came to a decision in his heart. He saw that although Green Cloud Mountain also had layers of restrictions, it was very obvious that these restrictions had long been worn out. Many places were full of flaws and looked like they hadn't been repaired for a long time. Compared to Tianmen Mountain's Huang family, it was quite inferior, not to mention the Imperial Thunder Sect. After seeing a foothill, he came face to face with an extremely long flight of stairs that went perfectly straight from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain. At the top of the mountain, there was a huge archway towering majestically. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, you can't fly here. I'll have to trouble fellow Taoists to follow I up the mountain." Flying in front of the straight flight of stairs, Yin Xing's figure landed and said somewhat proudly, "This is the location of my Misty Clouds sect's ancient restrictions. I have no choice but to do so. Please forgive me." No matter, Xiaohua also felt a faint suction force on his body. He said with a smile, "The guest will follow the host's wishes. This Xiao will definitely abide by your sect's rules." When Xiaohua walked step by step up the mountain peak, he saw that on top of the huge archway, there were two huge rain and dew characters in front of him. Moreover, around the two words rain and dew, there were all kinds of raindrop-shaped stripes. At first glance, it looked like some strange talismans. This archway seems to be somewhat similar to Yunwu Mountains, Xiaohua suddenly realized. However, Yin Qinglai ignored him and directly passed under the archway. He simply didn't let Xiaohua see it himself. Xiaohua's divine sense slightly swept over the archway and then left. After the archway, a huge, dilapidated palace hall appeared in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. Just now, in his divine sense, this palace hall didn't seem particularly huge, nor did it seem particularly mighty. However, after passing through the archway and arriving in front of him, a different kind of scenery actually appeared. It really caused him to be stunned. His previous thoughts of looking down on the Misty Clouds sect immediately disappeared. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, please." Yin Qinglai turned his head and saw Xiaohua's shock. He was slightly proud as he entered the main hall first. "Even if he is incomparably important, without spirit stones, my Misty Cloud sect will not sell a single condensing rain talisman." Looking at Yin Tingyu's upright facial features and upright temperament, Xiaohua couldn't help but laugh. Isn't this the legendary sanctimonious? Forget it, Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, I'm not here to discuss with fellow Taoist Yun whether or not the lives of secular people are important. Since your sect uses the condensing rain talisman, I will buy some condensing rain talismans. And wouldn't fellow Taoist Xiao have said so earlier? Yun Tingyu said with a smile. Fellow Taoist Yun, please give me 100 condensing rain talismans. Xiao Hua nodded. Oh, 100? Yun Tingyu frowned. From what fellow Taoist Xiao said, Fanzhuang only has a few mountains. 5 condensing rain talismans for each mountain would be enough. Why does fellow Taoist want so many? Why would a businessman be afraid of others buying too many? Xiao Hua said with a smile. I am just casually asking. Yun Tingyu said with a smile to Yun Qingjin, go to get 100 high-grade condensing rain talismans. High-grade? Yun Qingjin was stunned, but before he could hesitate, Yun Tingyu continued. It is the 100 high-grade condensing rain talismans that I personally refined yesterday. Personally refined and high-grade were emphasized. Yes, disciple understands. Yun Qingjin came to his senses and left with a smile. Xiao Hua saw and heard clearly, and he sneered in his heart. Fellow Taoist Xiao is from Fanzhuang. Yun Tingyu said with a smile. No, I have nothing to do with Fanzhuang. That's strange. Yun Tingyu said strangely. Since fellow Taoist Xiao has nothing to do with Fanzhuang, why did you spend so many spirit stones to help them? Nothing, Xiao Huan narrowed his eyes and said. I just can't stand watching someone die, so I had to do it myself. So, fellow Taoist Zhao's other yellow talismans are also used by other places? Yun Tingyu didn't seem ashamed and asked with a smile. Yes, fellow Taoist Yun is right. Xiao Hua nodded. Oh, Yun Tingyu looked at Xiao Hua thoughtfully. After a moment, he said with a smile, as far as I know, the farmers near Yu City are suffering from drought. It is the same near Qi City. It seems that the whole main country is suffering from drought. Fellow Taoist, Zhao's 100 yellow talismans. I'm afraid they are just a drop in the bucket. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and said with a smile, I also think so. What is Sect Master Yun's plan? At this time, Yun Qingjin came back with a stack of yellow talismans in his hand. Well, fellow Taoist Xiao, take these condensing rain talismans. Yun Tingyu pointed with his finger. One condensing rain talisman is a high-grade spirit stone. These 100 condensing rain talismans are 100 high-grade spirit stones. Not only was Xiao Hua surprised, but Yun Qingjin's eyes also flashed with a strange color. Xiao Hua said with a gloomy face, Sect Master Yun, a high-grade fireball talisman is only a mid-grade spirit stone, right? Your condensing rain talisman is only a high-grade spirit stone? Haha, Yun Tingyu said with a smile. Fellow Taoist Xiao, do you know what is called rare things are precious? In the entire Dawn Rain continent, who doesn't know how to refine a fireball talisman? But what about this condensing rain talisman? This sect master knows that other than my Misty Cloud sect, no one else knows how to refine it. This. Xiao Hua's face showed hesitation. It wasn't that he didn't have spirit stones, but how could he feel comfortable exchanging them for trash condensing rain talismans like this? After thinking for a moment, under the gaze of Yun Tingyu and the others, Xiao Hua clenched his teeth and said, Okay, since it's like this Xiao can only do this. Seeing that Xiao Hua was about to take out spirit stones, Yun Tingyu's eyes lit up. He waved his hand and said, Actually, fellow Taoist Xiao, this sect master has another idea. I don't know if fellow Taoist is willing to listen. Oh, there's another way? Xiao Hua said with a happy face. This Xiao is all ears. Well, fellow Taoist Xiao, please step up and talk. Yun Tingyu pointed with a smile. Xiao Hua looked and stepped up to the high platform. He stood at the edge of the high platform and said, Sect Master Yun, please speak. Actually, since fellow Taoist has come to my Misty Cloud sect, you must know something. Yun Tingyu saw Xiao Hua stand still and said sincerely, This condensing rain talisman is of little value in my main country's cultivation world. Hee hee, so Sect Master Yin also knows. Xiao Hua sneered. Fellow Taoist Xiao, you don't know the cost of firewood. Yin Tingyu waved his hand. My Misty Cloud sect is such a big sect, and this old man is the sole leader. If I don't have a source of spirit stones, how can this old man be the sect master? Yes, this Xiao knows. Xiao Hua nodded. Sect Master Yin, please explain. Good. Fellow Taoist Xiao is indeed a straightforward person. Yin Tingyu clapped his hands and said, this Yin thinks that instead of spending spirit stones to buy my Misty Cloud sect's condensing rain talisman, why not directly by the refining method of the condensing rain talisman? As soon as Yin Tingyu said this, the entire hall became silent. Even Yun Qinglai and the others were dumbfounded. Great! Unexpectedly, after Xiao Hua heard this, he beamed with joy and said, if Sect Master Yin has this idea, it is exactly what I want. I wonder what price this Xiao is willing to pay. Sect Master, Yun Qinglai said anxiously, but before he could speak, Yun Tingyu coldly snorted, this Sect Master is speaking. There is no reason for you to speak. Yes. Yun Qinglai gritted his teeth and lowered his head in silence. What my Misty Cloud sect lacks is spirit stones. If fellow Taoist Xiao can take out enough spirit stones, this talisman refining method, fellow Taoist can take it, Yin Tingyu said in a low voice. However, fellow Taoist Xiao must make a heart oath that you can only refine it by yourself and absolutely cannot pass it to others. Of course, this Xiao still knows. Xiao Huan nodded, but I don't know the price. Yin Tingyu's face revealed a smile, squinted his eyes, and transmitted a number to Xiao Hua. So much? Xiao Hua's expression suddenly changed. Hee, fellow Taoist Xiao. Yin Tingyu laughed. This number is a bit high, but don't you think it is much more cost-effective than buying the condensing rain talisman? Moreover, if the condensing rain talisman is not that useful, how can my Misty Cloud sect leak out the talisman refining method? Xiao Hua lowered his head and pondered, while Yin Tingyu stared at Xiao Hua's face, seemingly expecting something. All right. After a long while, Xiao Hua raised his head and said, since fellow Taoist Yin has such sincerity, this Xiao will give Misty Cloud's sect a few more spirit stones. Saying this, Xiao Hua lifted his hand and untied a storage pouch from his waist. Great! Yin Tingyu laughed and clapped. Sure enough, fellow Taoist Xiao is rich and overbearing. This Yin can't think of which cultivation sect in my main country would have such a brainless cultivator like you. You actually dared to reveal your spirit stones in front of a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator. Moreover, you are still in someone else's sect. Saying this, Yun Tingyu patted his forehead, and the pressure of a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator rushed over. It seemed to be suppressing Xiao Hua and probing Xiao Hua's true cultivation. Ha ha! Contrary to Yun Tingyu's expectations, Xiao Hua also laughed. His laughter was even more comfortable than Yun Tingyu's. At the same time, he also released his pressure, directly facing Yun Tingyu's pressure. Chapter 2087. Oh, he's clearly in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Has this guy lost his mind? When the two forces collided, Yin Tingyu's heart was even more at ease. He knew that Xiao Hua was indeed in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Then, with a wave of his hand, the torrential rain technique appeared. The abundant water-based heaven and earth spiritual qi around the main hall condensed into hundreds of hailstones that smashed toward Xiao Hua. Each hailstone contained intense spiritual qi. If it smashed into an ordinary cultivator's body, it would be normal for flesh and blood to fly. Xiao Hua withstood Yun Tingyu's pressure. His divine sense swept across the main hall, and a burst of contempt appeared in his eyes. He opened his hands, and a faint purple samadhi true fire with traces of crimson red surged out, instantly forming a wall of fire around Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua himself quickly flew away from where he was standing. At the same time, he waved his hand, and dozens of rabbit formation talismans shot towards where Xiao Hua was standing. Samadhi, true fire. Yin Tingyu was clearly a knowledgeable person. Seeing Xiao Hua turn the Samadhi true fire into a wall of fire, which was the nemesis of his water element techniques, he couldn't help but turn pale with fright. You're a disciple of the Changbai sect? Just as Yin Tingyu was shouting, there was a rumbling sound. Hundreds of hailstones smashed onto the wall of fire. Although the momentum was terrifying, the hailstones were all ignited by the Samadhi true fire. They could only intensify the wall of fire, but couldn't break through the defense at all. Ha ha, Xiao Hua laughed. Is it important where I come from? Yes, it's not important at all. Yin Tingyu said coldly. No matter which sect, even if you're a disciple of the Tai Ching sect, don't even think about taking one step out of the Misty Clouds sect today. That cold voice really didn't match his handsome facial features. Why aren't you making a move yet? Yin Tingyu slapped his hand and took out a magic treasure that was as green as a lotus leaf from his storage bag. He pointed his finger, and countless rays of misty green light poured out from the magic treasure. Yun Qinglian and the others also came to their senses at this time. They each clapped their hands, and a bamboo-like Dharma artifact, a water bottle Dharma artifact, and a watermelon-like Dharma artifact all flew into the air. These Dharma artifacts all emitted green or blue light without exception. The four of them seemed to speak at the same time. Each of them pointed their fingers, and a magic power in their bodies surged. Their magic treasures and artifacts rushed into the air. The magic treasures on the lotus leaves bloomed with a dark green lotus. It absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and spun rapidly. It produced a sharp sound of wind as it rushed towards Xiao Hua's head. If a normal cultivator was hit by that lotus, even if their physical body wasn't destroyed, the light protecting their body would definitely be broken. The four people were obviously in perfect coordination. The dark green watermelon magic tool produced ripples of water from all directions, and there was almost a hua-hua sound of water as it pounced towards Xiao Hua's legs. The water bottle magic tool poured out a bluish-green misty true water that rushed towards Xiao Hua's chest, and that bamboo pole transformed into a row of bluish-green waves that attacked Xiao Hua's back. Xiao Hua's fingers continuously pointed, and he quickly laid down the simple rabbit formation. He also took the time to raise his hand, and the Samadhi True Fire's wall of fire expanded with a "hoo" sound. Unfortunately, although the Samadhi True Fire's killing power was formidable, under the fierce attacks of the four Dharma artifacts and Dharma artifacts, it was broken one by one. The Misty Cloud sect can be considered to have some foundation. Seeing the Samadhi True Fire's wall of fire being broken, Xiao Hua was not surprised. He waved his hand and took out the tongue Jiao shears. I'll let you all see this Zhao's methods. Xiao Hua sneered. He activated his magic power, and a golden light flashed above the entire main hall. Yin Tengyu and the others only felt a cold air flash before their eyes. The golden light, in an inconceivably short amount of time, swept past the four Dharma artifacts. Yun Qinglian was the first to cry out in alarm. The bluish-green waves formed by his bamboo pole magic tool were instantly cut into two rows by the golden light. Immediately after, the brilliance disappeared, and the bamboo pole revealed its original form in the air. Not only that, but when the bamboo pole fell into the air, it actually staggered slightly. The tongue Jiao shears actually cut the bamboo pole in half. Pu shua sounds came one after another. The other two Dharma artifacts also revealed their original forms in the air. At the mouth of the water bottle and halfway through the watermelon, deep cracks appeared respectively. Only Yun Tingyu's lotus leaf magic tool was in a slightly better state. The lotus leaf was shattered by the tongue Jiao shears. The lotus leaf trembled and was only pushed back a few feet in the air. Yin Tengyu couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The shock in his eyes appeared once again. He looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief. He really couldn't imagine how this foundation establishment middle-stage cultivator could have such astonishing strength. Give me your life. Xiao Hua sneered. He waved his hand again, where his magic power surged. the tongue Jiao shears once again flashed with golden light and pounced towards Yun Tengyu. Yun Tengyu hurriedly pointed his finger at the Dharma artifact. At the same time, lotus flowers appeared one after another from the Dharma artifact. He hurriedly opened his hand slightly and took out a Dharma artifact from his storage bag. His other hand hurriedly formed a Dharma artifact and pointed at the center of the Dharma artifact. Shwa shwa, come. With a roar, the tongue Jiao shears actually cut all the lotus flowers in half. Moreover, it directly hit the body of the Dharma artifact. Pooh, as cracks appeared on the Dharma artifact. Yun Tengyu also suffered a backlash from the Dharma artifact and spat out a mouthful of blood. G. Yun Tengyu's mouthful of blood was spat on the Dharma artifact. The Dharma artifact that had already bloomed with green threads instantly changed again. The green threads gathered together and condensed into green beads. Like tadpoles, they actually made a sound and hit the air around Xiaohua. Hua hua hua. Within one zhang of Xiaohua, a ripple appeared in the air. Countless fist-sized raindrops trembled rapidly and flashed with inexplicable spiritual energy fluctuations, rushing toward Xiaohua. The raindrops were extremely powerful. The Samadhi true fire actually couldn't burn them. The entire wall of fire was like a layer of nothingness as it was broken by the raindrops. Xiaohua couldn't help but exclaim in a low voice. Since you've entered my Misty Cloud Sect's True Water Array, I'd like to see what kind of ability you have. Yun Tengyu saw that the Dharma artifact was effective and couldn't help but sneer again. You think there won't be a Dharma artifact in a different place? I'm just setting up a Dharma artifact. Is that so? Xiaohua exclaimed at first, but he didn't panic. While sneering, he slightly grasped with his left hand. The Dharma artifact gushed out from his 5 fingers, and the Dharma artifact was activated. Following that, a burst of white brilliance appeared and enveloped Xiaohua. The raindrops formed by the true water hit the brilliance. Pung pung pung. With a series of sounds, the brilliance of the Dharma artifact flashed one after another. But flashing was flashing, the brilliance was actually incomparably tough. It was simply impossible to break through. Do you think that this young master moved just to hide? Xiaohua mocked. Chapter 2088. So what? Yun Tengyu pointed at the disk array, and the pale light appeared again. The raindrops that hit the light shield immediately turned into a layer of water, covering the rabbit array. Moreover, the water quickly condensed into ice, isolating the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Is that possible? Xiaohua slightly raised the corner of his mouth, and once again urged the soaring dragon scissors. Wong. The soaring dragon scissors made a sound again. A golden light flashed, and with a kacha sound, the layer of ice condensed by the soaring dragon scissors was cut open without any resistance. You? Which senior of my main country are you? Yun Tengyu's face turned ashen. How could he not know that Xiaohua's strength was far beyond his? Senior, don't mention it. Xiaohua pointed his finger, and the soaring dragon scissors flew out of the array and pointed at Yun Tengyu. If you want to live, take out the method of making the condensing rain talisman. Well said. Yun Tengyu hurriedly waved his hand and said, Junior knows his mistake. Junior will take out the jade slip now. Yun Xinglian and the others at the side were even more ashen. They looked at Xiaohua, who was about to kill them, with fear. Yes, Xiaohua came to kill the Misty Cloud Sect's sect master. On one hand, he was really angry that the Misty Cloud Sect's cultivators did not help and killed Yun Tengyu to vent his anger. On the other hand, he wanted to check his own cultivation to see if he could kill his way in 100 grass sect with his current cultivation and take revenge for Shang Huoming. It's useless to look for I. Xiaohua laughed. You should look for Fan Zhuang's father, who starved to death. With that, the soaring dragon scissors cut through the air and chopped at Yun Tengyu. But at this moment, a strange scene appeared. However, when Yun Tengyu patted his storage bag, as if he was going to take out a jade slip, there was no jade slip in his hand. Instead, a ghastly white palm bone appeared. Pong! The lotus leaf magic treasure flew in front of the soaring dragon scissors and blocked it. However, the magic treasure was once again cut by the soaring dragon scissors. You forced this old man to do this. I'll take you down with me. Yin Tingyu sneered and spat out a mouthful of blood onto the white bones. Immediately after, a green light appeared in his eyes, and an extremely awkward and inexplicable voice came out of his mouth. As the voice came out, Yin Tingyu's face, which was originally like a full moon, rapidly shrank and withered. Green seal text. Xiaohua saw a faint green halo appear on the white bone. Circles of green seal text flew out from the halo and hit the high platform. He immediately had a bad feeling and didn't dare to be slow. He didn't even care about the rabbit spirit talisman and the soaring dragon shears. He immediately jumped up and used the bright thunder escape to fly away from the high platform. Xiaohua's flying speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he had already flown several feet away, leaving that strange high platform. But just as Xiaohua's heart relaxed, the entire high platform was covered in a green mist. Woo! A roar that sounded like it came from the underworld was heard. The high platform actually turned into a huge python and pounced out. A huge suction force pulled Xiaohua out of the platform. Go! Xiaohua was shocked. Without hesitation, he opened his mouth and spat out a scarlet spirit fire towards the huge python. Wung, a scale several feet long, immediately flew out from the dark green python's body. It also seemed to be formed from green seal characters. The scale surrounded the spirit fire, and Xiaohua immediately lost control of the spirit fire. Back! Xiaohua complained. His bones felt weak, and his flesh went limp. His body gave birth to endless exhaustion, and even an incomparable sleepiness appeared in his mind. Xiaohua bit the tip of his tongue, and a wave of pain appeared. Then, Xiaohua immediately used his soul cultivation method. A cool feeling came from his soul string, and the sleepiness gradually disappeared. However, in the blink of an eye, Xiaohua only felt his vision turn black. He had fallen into the huge python's mouth. Go! In this critical moment, Xiaohua quickly took out the great wisdom sword and smashed it into the huge python's mouth without hesitation. Unfortunately, where the heavy sword passed, the green seal text dodged one after another. However, when the heavy sword passed, the green seal text closed again and covered Xiaohua. Following the huge suction, Xiaohua's figure sank into the layers of green seal text and disappeared into the huge python's mouth. Following Xiaohua's disappearance, the huge python once again turned into green seal text and laid flat on the high platform, gradually disappearing. When the green light disappeared, a few small green seal text flew up and landed on the white bone in Yun Tingyu's hand. Cough, cough. The white bone in Yun Tingyu's hand disappeared again. Yun Tingyu couldn't help but cough. Sect Master, Yun Qinglian, and the others witnessed this inconceivable scene. When they heard the cough, their gaze fell on Yun Tingyu's face, and they were even more shocked. They saw that Yun Tingyu's face, which was still upright and proud just a moment ago, was now withered and shrunk. Wrinkles covered his face, and he seemed to have aged dozens of years in an instant. Yun Qinglian and the others knew that their sect master senior brother, although his cultivation was at the late stage of foundation establishment and his age was close to 200 years old, because he had eaten a youth-retaining herb when he was middle-aged, his appearance had never changed. They didn't expect that he would change so much now. Congratulations to Sect Master Senior Brother for learning our Misty Cloud Sect's ancient green python formation. Yun Qinglian suddenly woke up from her shock and hurriedly bowed to congratulate. Cough, cough. Yun Tingyu coughed again. He clapped his hands and took out a jade bottle. He poured out 2 scarlet pills and swallowed them. After closing his eyes for a moment, he said weakly, "What's there to congratulate? The secret to controlling this green python is something that every sect master of my Misty Cloud sect must learn. I was just unlucky to be able to control this green python. Hee. If you congratulate me on this, it's still okay. This green python hasn't been activated for tens of thousands of years. Then, he paused for a long time and sighed. AI, are you all still envious of I's sect master position? I remember that year when you all congratulated I. I had unspeakable bitterness. Before I took over as sect master, I never thought that controlling the green python would actually require one's lifespan as the price. This Xiao Hua, which sect's golden core senior is he? Then, Yin Tingyu flew into a rage. If he wasn't so weak that he couldn't move, he would have already jumped up. He can actually hide his cultivation and use the pressure of a middle-stage foundation establishment cultivator to deceive I. If it wasn't for him, how could I? This guy really, his heart is worthy of death. Sect Master, let's not investigate this. Yun Qinglian said pitifully, the one you killed was a golden core cultivator. If his sect finds out, my Misty Cloud sect will be completely annihilated. That's right. If it wasn't for Sect Master's divine courage, we would have all died in Xiao Hua's hands today. The other two whispered. Yin Tingyu thought for a moment and nodded. Inform the people on duty that today's matter must not be leaked. Yes, Yin Qinglian hurriedly responded, then frowned and said, how should we deal with the people from Jinhua Mountain? Didn't Sect Master just give them the cold shoulder for a few days and have to explain it to them tomorrow? They just give him a cold shoulder for a few days. Yun Tingyu thought for a moment and said, how can we not take spirit stones for 2 foundation establishment cultivators for them? I heard that Jinhua Mountain's yellow talismans are quite popular in Xi. That's right. What do they say about Main Country? That Fu Feng and Lu Yun are tight-lipped. This subordinate didn't find out anything. If we could take this opportunity to get some talisman-making techniques from Jinhua Mountain's Fu family, that would be good. Yin Tingyu said intentionally or unintentionally, then waved his hand and said, you all can leave. This sect master will be in seclusion for a few days. Yes. Yin Qinglian and the others bowed and saluted. The shock on their faces hadn't faded, and they quietly walked down the high platform and out of the main hall. Sigh. Yin Tingyu let out an aged sigh. His eyes were filled with resentment as he looked at the high platform where Xiao Hua had disappeared. Since you forced this old man to shorten his lifespan, this old man will also make you suffer the pain of being cut into pieces and fall into the 9 underworlds. Unfortunately, this old man doesn't have the strength to open the forbidden spell and can't personally witness your tragedy to appease this old man's resentment. However, your spirit stones are this old man's. Ha ha ha, the storage pouch of a gold core cultivator. This old man has been dreaming of it. At the end of his words, Yin Tingyu's eyes turned into greed. With a wave of his hand, the soaring dragon shears and a dozen talismans that Xiao Hua left on the high platform fell into his hand. Immediately, Yin Tingyu stood up from the stone chair and staggered into a quiet room behind it. Not to mention Yun Tingyu's seclusion, Xiao Hua's figure fell into the green python formed by the green light on the high platform. The true essence around his body gradually stagnated, and in the end, it was like a rock that couldn't be mobilized in the slightest. How sad! Xiao Hua's heart was filled with panic, and he hurriedly released his divine sense. He wanted to see what this place in front of him that seemed to be incomparably black, but also faintly emitting a faint green color, looked like. Unfortunately, he couldn't release his divine sense at all, and not even a trace of it could leave his body. The green seal text is actually so powerful. Xiao Hua finally tasted the power of the green seal text. Immediately after, Xiao Hua forced himself to raise the great wisdom sword in his hand. It was fine if he didn't move, but just as he moved, a huge pulling force appeared from all around him. Like a pair of huge hands, it pulled Xiao Hua's body in all directions. See, Xiao Hua's body was incomparably strong, but he still couldn't resist this pulling force. Xiao Hua couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air from the pain. Just as he cried out in pain, the light around his body flashed, and Xiao Hua's Taoist robe was torn to shreds. The spiritual armor protecting his body also emitted a weak light, as if it was trying its best to resist. However, this force was strange. It directly passed through the spiritual armor and acted on Xiao Hua's body, making all of his defenses useless. Ah! Xiao Hua cried out, struggling left and right. The pulling force became more and more vigorous, wanting to tear Xiao Hua apart. Damn it! This young master was too careless. Xiao Hua was somewhat regretful. This young master only wanted to rely on the rabbit array to resist the Misty Cloud's sect's forbidden technique, but I didn't expect them to have this green seal text. The rabbit array had no effect in the green seal text, and was instead broken into a mess. Although the soaring dragon shears were powerful, it didn't have any effect in the green seal text. However, that Yuntingyu was also barely able to control the green python. Presumably, he might not be stronger than this young master. This tearing force, how could it be so strong? It's even more powerful than the hands of a nascent soul cultivator. Chapter 2089. With just a few thoughts flashing through Xiao Hua's mind, the tearing force penetrated deep into Xiao Hua's body. His flesh was torn open, and a pain worse than being cut into pieces drilled into Xiao Hua's brain. Xiao Hua couldn't help but groan. If he hadn't endured Huang Yi's pain for tens of thousands of years, he would have fainted long ago. What do I do? What do I do? Xiao Hua's mind spun rapidly. I can't use the Dao Sex techniques. I'm afraid I can only use the soul strands. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua didn't hesitate. He hurriedly urged the soul strands out of the Dharma Eye imprint. Admittedly, it was like a dragon entering the sea. The soul strands were incomparably comfortable in the green seal text and extended rapidly. However, the tearing force around Xiao Hua's body didn't lessen in the slightest because of this. Xiao Hua couldn't help but roar. The pain had already penetrated deep into his brain. Right at this moment, a strange scene occurred. As the green seal text power penetrated deep into his brain, the green seal text in Xiao Hua's mind that he had comprehended earlier drilled out along with the tearing force and danced around Xiao Hua's body. As soon as these green seal text appeared, the tearing force was alleviated slightly. However, at this moment, Xiao Hua's surroundings were already filled with soul strands. The green seal text easily touched the soul strands, just like what Xiao Hua encountered when he was refining the shaman puppet. Occasionally, a feeling of comfort or shock would come from the soul strands. How could Xiao Hua not know that this was the perfect opportunity for him to comprehend the green seal text? He even knew that if he could rearrange the green seal text, he might be able to break the tearing force of the green light. But the problem was that he didn't know how to rearrange the green seal text, and he didn't have the time to comprehend it one by one. Because the tearing force was only slightly alleviated, and there were no signs of it stopping, perhaps I should first see how the green seal text is arranged. Xiao Hua was like a drowning man who had encountered a straw. He immediately grasped the opportunity. Thus, he hurriedly opened his left hand and opened his Dharma Eye to find the arrangement of the green seal text. It was fine if the delusion breaker Dharma Eye didn't open, but as soon as it did, a huge force rushed towards Xiao Hua's left hand, as if the Dharma Eye was a taboo of the green light. In his Dharma Eye, Xiao Hua felt tiny green seal script characters spinning crazily, as if pulling on the power of heaven and earth. A green seal script character flew out from his Dharma Eye like a flying sword. Xiao Hua panicked. All of a sudden, a powerful suction force emerged from the eye and pulled his divine sense into it. Immediately, his vision was filled with silver. A silver-gray beam of light shot out from the eye and shot straight at the green seal text. A strange sound rang out. It sounded like someone was chanting, but it also sounded like a ghost was chanting. When the light beam hit the green seal text, it instantly dissipated. The tearing force on Xiao Hua's body disappeared. Not only that, the silver light gradually melted away with the green seal text. The remaining green seal text fluttered in the air like headless flies. At first, it was disorderly, then it gradually became orderly, as if it was beginning to condense into the green light from before. Now is the time. Xiao Hua's mind was enlightened. With a slight thought, he immediately released his soul strands. Every strand of soul strands touched a tiny green seal text. The green seal text was very mysterious. Every time it touched a tiny green light, the entire sky flashed with green light. And Xiao Hua's soul strands didn't stop. Under Xiao Hua's control, the green seal text characters lined up one by one. Shua shua. For some unknown reason, many green seal text characters that touched each other mysteriously disappeared. And even more green seal text characters gradually shrank, gradually becoming the same size as the green seal text characters that flew out from Xiao Hua's mind. After an unknown amount of time, the green seal text characters that filled the sky disappeared. What surrounded Xiao Hua were only 36 tiny green seal text characters. Great! Xiao Hua was now able to stand freely in the air. How could he not know that he had turned misfortune into fortune? Xiao Hua closed his eyes and sent his soul thread into the 36 green seal script characters. An indescribable feeling came from his soul, and the 36 green seal script characters also fused with the soul thread. They flashed into the mysterious dark cloud in Xiao Hua's sea of consciousness and disappeared without a trace. However, Xiao Hua understood that of the 36 green seal text characters, plus the 3 that he had comprehended earlier, he had already learned 39 of them. Only, he knew a little about the usage of these green seal text characters, but he still didn't know how to use them like Yin Teng Yu. The crisis had been resolved, and Xiao Hua finally had the time to look at his surroundings. Oh, it's actually another huge space. Xiao Hua's gaze swept around and saw that he was inside a huge cave. Looking at the size, it was several times bigger than the Misty Cloud sect's main hall. Moreover, the entire cave didn't have any pillars or the like. Everything could be seen at a glance. What is that? After looking at the general situation, Xiao Hua's gaze had already landed on a huge green seal text character in front of him. The green seal text was engraved on a stone wall. It was over 30 meters tall, and it seemed to support the entire cave. There was a huge stone chair in front of it, and it was exactly the same as the one Yin Teng Yu was sitting on earlier. Rain. Xiao Hua carefully identified it. He could already see that it was the word rain, one of the 39 green seal text characters that he knew. Condensing rain talisman? Misty Cloud sect? Rain green seal text. Xiao Hua flew to the front of the green seal text and stood on the stone chair. He pinched his chin and squinted his eyes to size it up. He was already deep in thought. Needless to say, the Misty Cloud sect was a branch of the ancient cultivation method. The green seal text characters were the foundation of the Misty Cloud sect's cultivation method. However, along with the evolution of the cultivation method, the seal text characters were gradually abandoned or lost. More seal-making techniques were separated from the seal text and formed the current Misty Cloud sect. Damn it, such a powerful seal text was actually lost. Xiao Hua thought of the power of the green seal text and couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. Actually messing around with the yellow seal text, isn't this picking up sesame seeds and throwing away watermelons? After lamenting for a moment, Xiao Hua flew up again and prepared to find a way out. However, just as he flew up, he felt a sense of loss in his heart, as if he had lost something. Oh, Xiao Hua had always thought that his senses were sharp. He unconsciously stopped in the air and looked around. When his gaze landed on the green seal text again, a flash of light appeared in his mind. Ha ha, this young master is stupid. In the face of such a treasure, I almost entered a treasure mountain and returned empty-handed. Xiao Hua laughed loudly. His soul thread was pulled out from the Dharma eye imprint and touched the huge rain character like a tentacle. Just as Xiao Hua had expected, something strange happened. Since he was already close, even if it was a gold core cultivator, Xiao Hua wasn't the slightest bit afraid. let alone Yun Tingyu, who was in the late stage of Foundation establishment and was injured. Xiao Hua's fist hit the halo around Yun Tingyu's body. With a burst of sound like glass breaking, Yun Tingyu didn't have time to do anything. Xiao Hua's hand grabbed his neck. Senior, please spare my life. Yun Tingyu's hoarse voice struggled desperately. This junior is willing to give all the spirit stones of Misty Cloud's sect to Senior. This junior is willing to give all of Misty Cloud's sects. Yes, and a condensing rain talisman Senior wants. This junior has the moving clouds and summoning rain talisman, which is a secret spiritual talisman of my Misty Cloud sect. This junior will give it all to Senior. Hee, Xiao Hua sneered. Why would this Xiao covet your spirit stones? If this young master knows about those spiritual talismans and kills you, won't they all fall into this young master's hands? Senior. Yun Tingyu panicked. Senior doesn't know. My Misty Cloud sect is an ancient orthodoxy, and this place is an ancient ruin. Is it that? Xiao Hua smiled and pointed his finger. Yes. How did Senior know? Yun Tingyu was stunned. When he turned his head and saw that the green seal text had dimmed, he immediately turned pale with fright. However, before he could express his shock, he felt a sharp pain in his neck. The talismans protecting his body were all broken, and his vision turned black. Everything in the world was far away from him. Xiao Hua never gave any explanation to the cultivators who tried to harm him, especially this Yun Tingyu who treated the lives of the people of the world as nothing. Xiao Hua shook his hand and threw Yun Tingyu's corpse to the ground. He patted his forehead, and the Buddha's Sarira flew into the air. Then, he executed a Buddha skill and captured Yun Tingyu's soul. He waited for Xiao Hua to ask him what he wanted to know before transferring the soul away. This seemed to be Xiao Hua's first time trying out this particular Buddhist soul-searching technique. He felt very satisfied. With a wave of his hand, he picked up the storage pouch on Yun Tingyu's corpse and scanned it with his divine sense. He was stunned on the spot. Damn, this Yun Tingyu seems to be too stingy. This storage pouch is full of spirit stones, and there are also a lot of top-grade spirit stones. Why is Misty Cloud's sect so poor? Since it's in this young master's hands, it's better not to waste it. Xiao Hua took out half of the spirit stones from the storage pouch and left the rest inside. Then, Xiao Hua spent a few hours copying the jade slips in the storage pouch one by one. Then, he took out a few seemingly old talismans and said with a smile, "This is the Cloud Travel and Rain Talisman. This Misty Cloud sect Senior is indeed a capable person. Since talismans can't be easily used, they can be turned into talismans for both spirit and yellow talismans. It's just that yellow talismans are easy to refine, but the materials for these spirit talismans are difficult. Today's Dawn Rain continent is really hard to find." After taking half of the yellow talismans, spirit talismans, and his own soaring dragon scissors and rabbit spirit talismans, Xiao Hua took out the palm leaf fan-like hand bone. A wisp of true samadhi fire burned on it, and a series of green seal characters flew out. Xiao Hua used his soul strands to touch it, and 4 more green seal characters that Xiao Hua didn't understand appeared. Great! Xiao Hua was happy and threw the hand bone into the space. Sure enough, the hand bone automatically flew to the other white bones and landed on the left hand. A faint lightning bolt connected it to the other white bones. Then, Xiao Hua cut off Yun Tingyu's Taoist robe and burned his corpse with a wisp of true samadhi fire. Finally, Xiao Hua's figure changed and turned into Yun Tingyu's appearance. He put on the Taoist robe again and flew back to the stone chair. After thinking for a moment, he cast a few unfamiliar spells, and a halo covered him. The halo spun rapidly, and Xiao Hua's figure disappeared from the cave. When he opened his eyes, he already appeared in a quiet room. Xiao Hua sat cross-legged and thought for a moment. Yun Tingyu was killed by me, but the Misty Cloud sect's orthodoxy is still here, so I don't need to destroy their inheritance. This Yun Tingyu just happened to be devoured by the talisman, so it's an excellent excuse. I can also do some good for this dead man and gather some good karma. Presumably, Xiao Hua left the quiet room and landed on the main hall. He waved his hand, and a messaging talisman flew out. Sect Master, Sect Master. Xiao Hua's messaging talisman hadn't even flown out of the main hall when a burst of exclamations came. Yun Xinglian and the other Foundation establishment disciples recklessly rushed in from outside the main hall. You wait. Xiao Hua sat on the stone chair and felt very strange. Sect Master, you. Seeing Xiao Hua sitting on the stone chair perfectly fine, Yun Xinglian was also very surprised. She was extremely shocked and stuttered. Your life spirit tablet, I.O. Xiao Hua's heart moved. He knew he was wrong again. He had forgotten about the life spirit tablet of a Foundation establishment cultivator. Cough, cough. Xiao Hua coughed a few times and said with a hoarse voice, Junior brother, the brother in front of you is already not the original brother. This Sect Master senior brother. Yun Qinglian cried. Junior brother knows. This is the body that Sect Master senior brother used my Misty Cloud Sect's secret technique to maintain. Senior brother used my Misty Cloud Sect's secret technique just now. His lifespan has already been completely exhausted. All right, you are indeed Yin Tingyu's junior brother. This young master doesn't need to explain anymore. Xiao Hua laughed secretly in his heart. Sigh. Qinglian, you still don't know. Forget it. This Sect Master doesn't have much time, so I can't explain too much to you. Wait until you understand the essence of my Misty Cloud Sect, then you will naturally know what this brother is talking about. Xiao Hua sighed again and patted his storage bag. With a wave of his hand, he took out half of the spirit stones and said, Don't blame this Sect Master for being stingy. Being in charge of a sect has never been as simple as you all think. This Sect Master has always been living frugally. These are the spirit stones that this Sect Master has recorded for 100 years. Now, I will give them all to you and let the disciples in the sect divide them. Count it as this Sect Master's final gift to them. Sect Master senior brother. Seeing that Xiao Hua actually took out so many spirit stones, the hesitation of Yun Qinglian and the rest instantly disappeared. There was only one sentence in their hearts. When a person is about to die, his words are kind. All right, the second matter is the most important. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, Qingyu, come over here. Yes, Qingyu greets the Sect Master. A middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivator stepped forward and bowed. Yin Qingyu, this Sect Master will now pass on the position of Sect Master of my Misty Cloud Sect to you. You must properly manage the Misty Cloud Sect for this Sect Master. Xiao Hua said seriously and handed over Yun Tingyu's storage bag to her. Sect Master. Yin Qingyu happily took the storage bag. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, This Sect Master doesn't have much time. Everything will be simple. You will be in charge of the Sect Master ceremony. In the future, you can manage it yourself. Yes, thank you, Sect Master. Yin Qingyu's tears were about to fall. To be continued. Chapter 2091. The third thing. Yin Qingyu said again, Before I die, I will look back on the past. I don't regret wasting my time, nor do I feel ashamed for doing nothing. However, I regret that I didn't use my cultivation to do more things for the common people. That Xiao Hua, who came from nowhere. What he said is quite reasonable. All of you, from today onwards, you should make condensing rain talismans and make rain for the common people in Yu City and even main country. This is my last order. You must do it with all your heart. Yes, we will do our best to fulfill your last wish. Yin Qingyu and the others bowed with tears in their eyes. All right, this Sect Master is about to leave. Xiao Hua stood up. This Sect Master has already left a quiet place for himself. Before Xiao Hua could finish, Yin Qingyu hurriedly said, Senior Brother Sect Leader, I have one last question. Oh, go ahead. Xiao Hua stopped. His heart was beating fast. After all, he was asking Yin Tingyu's soul, and he didn't know much about Misty Cloud Sect. How should we deal with the Fu family of Mount Jinhua in Shi Country? Yin Qingyu said in a low voice, senior brother sect leader, seems to be dissatisfied with the spirit stones they took out. Also, after you leave, Misty Cloud sect will have nothing to do with the Fu family of Mount Jinhua. Should we let them go or help them? Please tell us, senior brother sect leader. Fu Feng. Xiao Hua was stunned. He was a little surprised and a little embarrassed. He rolled his eyes and said, Qing Yu is guarding Misty Cloud's sect. Qing Lian and Qing Feng, help them. After all, the Fu family of Mount Jinhua is my old friend. Yes, we understand. Yin Qingyu and the other two bowed. All right, all of you, follow me and wait at the entrance of the palace. Xiao Hua's figure floated leisurely like a formless object. This old man will leave alone. Let this old man's primordial spirit, let this old man's ruined body dissipate between heaven and earth. As Xiao Hua spoke, he flew out of the main hall and landed in front of the stairs. He followed the long flight of stairs and slowly walked down. His figure was both imposing and seemed to be staggering. The entire Misty Cloud sect was immediately filled with a solemn atmosphere. Yin Qinglian, Yin Qingyu, Yin Qingfeng, and the other disciples couldn't help but kneel down and weep. Xiao Hua's back became increasingly blurry in their eyes. Yes, this Yin Tongyu's character is not good. He is quite sinister and stingy, but the sect leader's prestige is still there. Xiao Hua had already walked far away when he used his divine sense to scan the area. When he saw that the Misty Cloud sect's people did not follow him, he muttered in his heart. He took off Yin Tongyu's Taoist robe and casually threw it into a stream. Then, with a twist of his body, he entered the ground and headed in Fan Zhuang's direction. As for whether or not Yin Qinglian and the others had come out to find Yin Tingyu, and whether or not they had only seen Yin Tingyu's Taoist robes and were puzzled, that was not something Xiao Hua had to consider. Outside of the Misty Cloud sect, Xiao Hua really did not put the Misty Cloud sect's disciples in his eyes. When Xiao Hua arrived at Fan Zhuang, he saw the Fan Zhuang's clan leader, Fan Yinxiao, organizing the young and strong people of the clan to plant rice seeds. It looked like it was in full swing, far from the cold and lifeless appearance of a few days ago. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over. Xue Xue had already sensed it and flew out in joy. Everyone also knew that Xiao Hua had returned, so they all looked up. Xiao Hua whispered in Xue Xue's ear for a moment, then stretched out his hand and took out a dozen condensing rain talismans. Under the urging of his magic power, they were all scattered. Sure enough, streaks of blue light flashed, and under each ray of light, a thin layer of water dozens of feet in size immediately formed, then condensed into rain and dripped down. Many thanks, Taoist Xiao. Everyone's face showed a pleasantly surprised expression. Regardless of the rain pouring on their bodies, and regardless of the mud gradually growing between the fields, they knelt on the ground. Seeing everyone so happy, his heart unconsciously felt at peace, and the corners of his mouth also carried a smile. It seemed that all the previous life and death hardships had been rewarded. This is... Xiao Hua suddenly felt that there was something strange in his body. He hurriedly examined it, but saw that within the Buddha fire, there were more and more invisible golden threads, becoming increasingly clear. Xiao Hua looked at the extremely pious expressions of everyone under his feet, as well as their grateful eyes, and unconsciously thought of something. These golden threads of the Buddha fire are actually related to other people's gratitude? It seems that the first few golden threads appeared after this poor Taoist saved those martial artists. Immediately, Xiao Hua put this matter to the back of his mind. He didn't think of anything in return for saving people, especially these secular people. He knew that they absolutely couldn't help him. These golden threads, it's better to have them, but it doesn't matter if they don't have them. Thank you, Taoist Xiao, for your great kindness. Fan Yinxiao trembled as he bowed, the snow-white beard on his mouth trembling. Old man, this is what we cultivators should do. Xiao Hua hurriedly supported him. If all the immortals were like Taoist Xiao, we secular people wouldn't be afraid of any disasters. Fan Yinxiao said as he wiped his tears. Xiao Huan knew that he didn't have the ability to guide the entire Dawnrain continent, so he could only deal with it with a smile. I have already ordered all the Fan family disciples to pay respects to Daoist Xiao every day and pass on Daoist Zhao's grace to the future generations of the Fan family. Fan Yunxiao said excitedly. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand. We'll talk about this later. With this rain, the drought around Fan Manor should be solved. I still have to go to the other places to take a look. If there is a drought, it will also be solved. Yes, it should be like this. Fan Yunxiao smiled apologetically. However, I have a strange matter that I want to tell Daoist Xiao. Please speak, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Fan Yunxiao pointed at the previously sowed field and said, Where did you get the rice that Daoist Xiao took out earlier? If Daoist Xiao still has some, can you bestow some more? Oh, why? Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over. At first, it was strange, but then he came to a realization and said curiously, But what's going on? Some of the rice already have some seedlings, some are still not. Oh no, these seeds don't seem to have sprouted at all. Really? They haven't sprouted at all? Fan Yunxiao frowned and said, I thought it was still early, but it turns out that they haven't sprouted at all. It seems that my guess was right. What do you mean by that? Xiao Hua also frowned. The rice in his space grew with his own eyes, but he only had a vague impression of how the rice outside grew. All right, I'll let Daoist Xiao know. Fan Yunxiao didn't take advantage of his seniority just because he looked old. He said respectfully, This old man is 73 years old this year, and I've lived in Fan Manor all my life. The furthest I've gone is Yu City. This old man doesn't have much knowledge, but I do have some skills when it comes to taking care of crops. Xiao Hua smiled and nodded slightly. My Fan Manor's rice has always grown well since I was a child. For many years, the rice was planted at a fixed time, sprouted at a fixed time, headed at a fixed time, and ripened at a fixed time. My Fan Manor's farmers also harvested at a fixed time. Fan Yunxiao stroked his beard and sighed, but now everything has changed. Chapter 2092. Since more than 10 years ago, it should be more than 20 or 30 years ago, the situation has gradually changed. At first, the time of germination of the rice seed changed, then the time of heading changed, and then the time of ripening, harvesting, and sowing also changed. What worries this old man the most is that the harvest is slowly decreasing. Fan Yunxiao said with a pained expression. Xiao Hua almost cried out in surprise. He immediately thought of the changes in the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. He heard from a foundation establishment cultivator at the auction in Haoming City. Daoist Xiao. Fan Yunxiao immediately stopped and looked at Xiao Hua in panic. It's okay. I seem to have thought of something. Senior, please continue. Xiao Hua nodded with a smile. Yes, the agriculture has been declining for more than 10 years, and the climate has also become worse. In this old man's humble opinion, even if this year's drought didn't happen, in a few years, the rice seeds will not be able to be used anymore. Fan Yunxiao said very sadly, I'm afraid that the people of the secular world will starve to death. I understand what Senior is saying. Xiao Hua nodded, then pointed his finger and said, How did Senior know that these rice seeds were taken by I? How could we dare to eat the life-saving food that Daoist Xiao gave us all at once? Farmers all know the principle of using grain as seeds. Without seeds, how can we survive in the coming year? Fan Yunxiao said with a smile. Seeds survival. Fan Yunxiao's simple words immediately made Xiao Hua understand, as if the essence of the Tao of life and death was deeply contained in them. When Taoist Master Xiao brought food again, this old man asked them to plant the rice from before and some of the good seeds that were sent over. Fan Yunxiao explained, however, they have already been mixed together, and this old man knows how to distribute them. Yes, I understand. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and said, I will walk around first. The drought in the vicinity of Yu City is very serious. When I finish this matter, I will come back and discuss it with Senior. Yes, Daoist Xiao is truly compassionate. If an immortal like Daoist Xiao cannot live as long as the heavens. Then the heavens must be blind. Fan Yinxiao said gratefully. Xiaohua smiled and pulled Shue's hand. The two of them flew into the air and gradually disappeared into the distance. Although the congealing rain talisman was an unremarkable yellow talisman, it was quite difficult to refine. Shui didn't know how to refine yellow talismans, so she couldn't help much. Therefore, along the way, Xiaohua refined the congealing rain talisman, and Shui displayed the congealing rain talisman. In just a few days, Xiaohua and Shui had taken control of the areas with the most severe drought before flying back to Fan Manor. Husband, Shui thought as she flew, and asked with some doubt, I didn't feel it before, but after doing so many things with my husband, I feel quite satisfied. It seems that this concubine hasn't cultivated for so many years in vain. This is something that this concubine has never felt before. I don't know why either, Xiaohua said with a smile. However, helping others is the foundation of happiness. Being able to help others and being able to be happy, why wouldn't you and I be happy? My husband is indeed different from the cultivators of my Xiaoyu continent. Shui's eyes were filled with love, and she said tenderly, It's exactly as Elder Fan said. If a cultivator like my husband can't become a great person, the heavens will really be speechless. Xiaohua hurriedly blocked Shui's lips with his index finger and whispered, Elder Fan is a secular person. His words don't need to be taken seriously. We are cultivators, and our words must come true. You mustn't speak nonsense. Shui stuck out her tongue and licked Xiaohua's finger and said with a smile, I understand. If I can help you become a great person, what's wrong with this concubine's body being crushed and my soul being scattered? Xiaohua was startled, and he had a bad feeling. He frowned and said, Why do you keep saying such things? Could it be that there's something wrong? Of course not. Shui's charming eyes were like silk, and she said with a smile, This concubine is just expressing her feelings. Xiaohua muttered to himself for a moment, then nodded and warned, Wife, there are some things that can be said, and some things that absolutely cannot be said. If my wife has any warning signs, you must tell your husband as soon as possible. This concubine understands. Shui said indifferently. With my husband's cultivation, this concubine has always been by your side. What kind of warning signs can there be? All right. Xiaohua knew that these things couldn't be explained clearly. Let's return to Fan Manor first. When they returned to Fan Manor, it was just as Fan Yinxiao said. Some of the rice seeds had already sprouted into thumb-sized seedlings, but the majority of the seeds still didn't have any movement. Xiaohua used his divine sense to check, and after a moment of contemplation, he told Shui about it, and then went into seclusion. He still had to wait and see if the remaining seeds could germinate or not. In addition, he urgently wanted to know what kind of secret technique Misty Cloud's sex Yuntingyu used to produce the syllables of the Green Seal characters. Xiaohua went into seclusion for 14 days, and on the 15th day, he came out of seclusion with a disappointed face. Now, he knew the talisman of the cloud summoning rain technique, and also knew how ghost cultivators use these syllables, but what he lacked was how cultivators could produce these syllables. From Misty Cloud's sex ancient records, he indeed knew how Yuntingyu produced the syllables of the Green Seal characters, and it was indeed very strange. It was indeed something he couldn't even dream of. But the ancient records clearly said that this was the price of the cultivator's lifespan, and it absolutely couldn't be used unless it was an emergency. Xiaohua was so righteous that he would use his own lifespan to freely squander it. However, it wasn't like he didn't have any gains. He had already seen Misty Cloud's sex cloud summoning rain talisman clearly, and as long as he could find rare spirit beasts, he was confident that he could easily refine this talisman. As for the cloud summoning rain talisman recorded in Misty Cloud's sex records, Xiaohua looked at it again and again, carefully comprehending more than half of it. In addition, While he was cultivating, he also thought clearly that Xiaoyu continent should have encountered a situation where the spiritual energy of heaven and earth changed strangely. Fan Zhuang's rice seeds should have been affected by this and could no longer produce food for ordinary people to eat. And the seeds produced in his space, because of his space's spiritual light, or because the water of the two extreme yin and yang pools in his space had the effect of breeding all living things, were able to produce suitable seeds in this world where the spiritual energy of heaven and earth had transformed. Husband, is there something wrong? Shui keenly saw Xiao Hua's disappointment and hurriedly asked. It's nothing, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Maybe your husband's expectations were too high. How is Fan Zhuang's situation? There are changes, but also no changes. Shui pursed her lips and said with a smile. Just like before husband went into seclusion, those germinating seeds have already grown strong and healthy. According to the farmers of Fan Zhuang, they're growing much faster than the rice they planted before. What about the changes? Fan Zhuang has already completely restored to the vitality it had before husband arrived. Are you very happy to see them? Xiao Hua said with a smile. Shui didn't conceal anything and nodded vigorously. That's right. And your husband has already found a way to solve the problem of the seeds. Once we finish dealing with the matter here, my wife will follow your husband to another place. Xiao Hua replied with a smile. Husband is really amazing. Shui's face revealed a happy expression. This concubine has thought for a long time, but there is no way to solve it. I don't know how husband will solve it. It's too simple. Xiao Hua laughed and said, your husband knows that it's enough to give them enough seeds, right? That's right, but Shui heard this and was naturally shocked. This kind of solution was naturally a cure, but where did the seeds come from? Shui instantly thought of the seeds that Xiao Hua took out from his storage bag. However, Xiao Hua obviously didn't have any seeds in his storage bag. Otherwise, Xiao Hua wouldn't have asked her for some spirit jujube. Shui thought of this and very rationally stopped asking. She only smiled and didn't say anything else. Xiao Hua brought Shui to see Fan Yinxiao and gave enough seeds to Fan Zhuang. He didn't say anything else. After all, Fan Zhuang was an expert in farming. Xiao Hua only needed to provide good seeds and other things. Fan Zhuang could do better than him. Seeing Xiao Hua take out so many good seeds, Fan Yunxiao's eyes lit up. These days, he had been observing the seeds planted in the fields. He found that these seeds were not only resistant to drought, but also grew very fast. They were simply the legendary immortal seeds. The villagers of Fan Zhuang knew that with these immortal seeds, even if the drought came again, they would still be able to survive. Spiritual Master Zhao's great kindness, this old man, will be unable to repay you even if his bones are crushed. Fan Yinxiao began to sing praises. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, there's no need to be like this. Elder Fan, these good seeds are for Fan Zhuang. However, it's more than 10 times what Fan Zhuang wanted. I also hope that if possible, while Fan Zhuang is farming, he can also distribute these good seeds to other places in Fan Zhuang so that they can all benefit from it. But if Elder Fan, Xiao Hua's tone suddenly became cold. Rest assured, Spiritual Master Xiao. This old man understands that Spiritual Master Xiao has the hearts of all living beings. This old man has also suffered the pain of starvation. I will not watch others starve to death because of my selfish desires. Fan Yinxiao heard this and immediately knelt on the ground, kowtowing in panic as he answered. But all people have selfish desires and greed. I hope that Elder Fan will do as you say. Xiao Hua glanced at Shui, and the two flew up at the same time. Spiritual Master Xiao, Fairy Shui, is leaving. Fan Yinxiao reluctantly shouted. Children of Fan Zhuang, quickly kowtow and respectfully send Spiritual Master Xiao off. Thank you, Spiritual Master Xiao. Respectfully send Spiritual Master Xiao off. Hearing this, everyone immediately dropped what they were doing and knelt on the ground, respectfully sending Xiao Hua and Shui off. AI, what good farmers! Xiao Hua sighed in his heart. He waved his hand and flew even further away. Husband, you are really amazing. After flying far away, Shue Shue gave him a thumbs up and smiled. Xiao Hua smiled and squinted his eyes as he looked into the distance. He smiled and said, solving the problems of the secular world is really not easy. However, when it comes to solving the disputes between cultivators, your husband is much more amazing. Chapter 2093. Husband, what's the matter now? Shue Shue pursed her lips and smiled. I've been waiting for you for a long time to see you rescue Yin Duan, Fu Ho, and Fu Zhu. You've been delayed for so long. I'm afraid that the three of them have already been killed by the Fu clan of Mount Jinhua, right? Xiao Hua knew that Yun Tingyu's funeral and Yun Xingyu's taking over of the Misty Cloud sect required time and ceremony. Even if the Fu clan of Mount Jinhua didn't want the Misty Cloud sect's help, they couldn't leave. Not to mention that Yun Qinglai and Yun Qingfeng still had to follow them to White Bamboo Mountain. Fu Feng and the others could only wait until everything was over before they could leave. This was also the reason why Xiao Hua had been staying at Fanzhuang all this time. Let's go. We should be able to catch up. Xiao Hua pointed to the distance. He had already scouted out the location of White Bamboo Mountain in Yu City. He held Shue Shue's hand and flew towards White Bamboo Mountain. White Bamboo Mountain was a small, remote mountain range. It was even more barren than the Misty Cloud sect. The thin heaven-earth spiritual qi was only enough to satisfy the cultivation needs of cultivators. If it was an ordinary cultivator, they definitely wouldn't stay for long. At this moment, within the White Bamboo Mountain, there was an emerald-green bamboo forest. The bamboo roots were sparkling and translucent like jade. Moreover, from time to time, there would be the crisp chirping of birds rising from the bamboo forest. Although the birds could not be seen, combined with the sound of the gurgling stream, it was indeed a place that led to a secluded place. In this beautiful bamboo forest, there was a bamboo house built with bamboo. On top of a few thin bamboos, an extremely handsome middle-aged cultivator was frowning. In the air in front of him, there was a blood-red beast skin floating. The middle-aged cultivator was holding a red brush in his hand. There was a faint light on the brush, and the heaven-earth spiritual qi in the surroundings slightly flowed along with the strokes of the brush. Ka! A strange sound was heard. It was as if the red brush had hit a solid stone and stopped. The heaven-earth spiritual qi that was flowing rhythmically in the surroundings immediately stopped. However, in just an instant, the heaven-earth spiritual qi suddenly exploded and rushed towards the beast's skin in front of the cultivator. Boom! A flame rose from the beast's skin with a soft sound. Sigh! The cultivator sighed and hurriedly waved his hand. A yellow talisman fell on the beast's skin, and a cool mist appeared and extinguished the flame. Husband, did you fail again? Two crisp voices sounded at the same time. Behind the cultivator, two extremely beautiful female cultivators who looked exactly the same flew down from the bamboo house. Their figures were graceful, like fairies flying in the air. Needless to say, these three cultivators were none other than Zhao Feng, Fu Zhu, and Fu Ho. A wry smile appeared on his face. He waved his hand, and the damaged beast skin fell into his hand. He said, "Yes, your husband has tried countless times. Your husband clearly has this memory, but when I draw here, the brush gives off a cryptic feeling and my magic power can't flow smoothly. Perhaps my husband remembered wrongly?" Fu Zhu said cautiously. The Fu puppet giggled and said, "My husband's cultivation is still shallow. You'll naturally be fine after you reach the foundation establishment stage." Alas, what the two of you said is reasonable. Looking at the two of them, happiness appeared on his face. This husband is a little too impatient for success. This invisibility talisman can only be drawn after foundation establishment with true essence. As for true qi, it's beyond my power. You can't blame my husband. Fu Zhu said considerately, "Foundation establishment requires luck. We work hard. My sister and I have already reached the 11th layer of qi refining, and my husband is already at the peak of the 12th layer. You're much stronger than the disciples of Mount Jinhua. As long as your luck is right, you'll be able to reach the foundation establishment stage and successfully refine this invisibility talisman. That's right. The Fu puppet stomped her foot and said angrily, "If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have given Xiao Hua the method to refine the yellow talisman. That guy must have been captured by Fu Yunbua, and his storage bag must have been left behind in Mount Jinhua." Alas, my wife. Song Ying sighed. Don't say such words again in the future. Junior brother, Xiao has been extremely benevolent to us. He took the item for himself, and at that time, he removed all suspicions on us. Only then could we calmly escape. He completely replaced us in Mount Jinhua. Your husband couldn't obtain the method to refine the yellow talisman. It's fate. There's no need to blame junior brother Xiao. My husband is right. Fu Zhu held the Fu puppet's hand and said with a smile, "We can only be grateful to Xiao Hua and not resent him." And I understand. The Fu puppet pouted and agreed. Her pretty appearance was extremely similar to when she was young. That's right. When Xiao Hua separated from Zhao Feng and the others, the battle formation was incomparably sensational. 4 foundation establishment cultivators joined forces to find him. With Xiao Hua's qi refining cultivation, it was absolutely impossible for him to escape. This was also the reason why Zhao Feng never thought about it. My wife, why did you come to the back mountain instead of teaching the disciples how to refine yellow talismans in the front mountain? Zhao Feng asked with a smile. What's there to teach? They're just a bunch of kids. The Fu puppet said disdainfully. Those third-layer disciples are really too stupid. I told them several times, but they didn't understand the main points. I was really angry. I just let them cultivate on their own. Hee. Zhao Feng looked at the Fu puppet lovingly, then looked at Fu Zhu's smiling face. He reached out and held the Fu puppet's hand, saying, "My wife has worked hard. Your husband is very grateful." The Fu puppet felt sweet inside, but also a little embarrassed. She looked at Fu Zhu and lowered her head, saying, "My husband, I know I'm a little impatient. Our heavenly talisman sect has only been established for a few years. These disciples will be the future pillars of the sect's development. When we return, I'll definitely focus on teaching them." As long as my wife understands. Zhao Feng held the two's hands, saying, "Come, let's sit down. I've been busy cultivating, and you two have been busy teaching the disciples. We haven't had a good chat in a long time." Fu Zhu and Fu puppet smiled. The 3 of them walked to the front of the bamboo hut and sat on the bamboo planks that had been set up. They each leaned on Zhao Feng's side, leaning their heads on his shoulders. Their faces were full of happiness as they looked at the blazing sun hanging in the sky to the west of White Bamboo Mountain. The 3 of them were silent for a long time before Fu Zhu said faintly, "Husband, sometimes this concubine really has doubts. Today, this concubine feels like she's dreaming. This concubine and my sister are really together with husband. Look at what you're saying, sister. It's been decades, and you still think you're a girl in your teens?" The Fu puppet smiled, and then her face was full of joy. But then again, Fu Yunbua, that old bastard, really doesn't have good intentions. He knew that we were husband sisters, but he still arranged for us to be together. His intentions are really terrible. When I heard this, I felt that the whole world was dark. But I didn't expect that husband's background was a little special. Sister and I really aren't husband sisters. If Uncle Xiang didn't tell us, how would we know? I really want to thank Fu Yunbua and my wife. Just as the Fu puppet smiled and was about to say another name, Zhao Feng scolded, "Some things are enough for you to know. Why say it out loud?" Then he sighed. "It's a pity for Uncle Xiang. He worked hard for my husband all his life, but only lived quietly on this White Bamboo Mountain for a few years before he passed away." Fu Huang pursed her lips and giggled. Fu Zhu consoled, "Husband, don't be sad. Uncle Xiang is already smiling in the underworld when he sees your achievements. And you have my little sister and I to accompany you. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian. Calm devote." Chapter 2094. Husband, Fu Zhu said with infatuation. Wouldn't it be great if the three of us could enjoy such beautiful scenery together? Wouldn't it be great if we could cultivate together and enjoy the scenery when we're free? Why, create a heavenly talisman sect. That's right. Once Big Sister and I reach the foundation establishment stage, it would be best for us three foundation establishment cultivators to take charge of sect. It's a bit too early for that. Fu Xiao looked at her sister and probed. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth as he looked left and right at his two equally beautiful wives. My two wives are absolutely right. However, your husband has his own plans. I'm going to explain it to my two wives. We'll listen to your explanation, Fu Zhu and Fu Xiao said with a smile. From their tone, even if Songda explained it casually, they wouldn't pursue the matter. If the three of us were to cultivate by ourselves, we would be able to relax. But don't you think that the three of us are too weak? Even if the three of us reach foundation establishment, I'm afraid we won't be a match for Mount Jinhua. Your husband created the Heavenly Talisman sect, and all the disciples are your husband helpers. If they can cultivate to a high level of qi refining, they'll be your support. Even if we face Mount Jinhua that day, our Heavenly Talisman sect won't be at a disadvantage. Songda said with a smile, moreover, our strength is in yellow talismans. We can cultivate while refining yellow talismans. Since we can cultivate and refine yellow talismans at the same time, why can't we teach our disciples while refining yellow talismans? This is killing three birds with one stone. Yes, you're right. Fu Zhu and Fu Xiao agreed as expected. Moreover, your husband. How can a small sect in a corner of the Ming kingdom be my goal? Songda's eyes lit up. Your husband wants to make this Heavenly Talisman sect one of the top sects in the Dawn Rain continent. What Shanghua sect? What Changbai sect? Mount Jinhua isn't even worthy of carrying my Heavenly Talisman sect's shoes. Your husband has even thought of a title for your baby. Is that so? Husband, please tell us. Fu Zhu's and Fu Ai's faces lit up. I like cultivators with lofty ambitions like you. Husband will definitely dominate the Dawn Rain continent in the future. He proudly said, after I become pregnant, I will be called Taoist Heavenly Talisman. What do you all think? Awesome. A look of longing appeared on the Fu puppet's face. My husband's title is truly resounding. In the future, my Heavenly Talisman sect will definitely follow Taoist Heavenly Talisman's name throughout the entire Dawn Rain continent. Husband is truly a genius. Fu Zhu also praised. Mistress. Just as Fu Zhu and Fu Puppet were intoxicated, a panicked voice came from behind them. Displeased, he turned his head around and saw a third-layer qi refining disciple flying unsteadily towards him from the mountain behind the bamboo hut. Li Su Kuan, why are you in such a sorry state? The talisman puppet flew up and scolded. Didn't I teach you? You are a disciple of my Heavenly Talisman sect and also a disciple of a cultivation sect. You should have the temperament of not being frightened by a mountain. Yes, disciple understands. Li Su Kuan was a child of about 10 years old. Panting heavily, he replied, Disciple has an urgent matter to report to Sect Master. Can't you just send a message, Talisman? Why are you so panicked? Song Luan said in a very imposing manner. He had the bearing of Sect Master. Disciple is slow-witted. Disciple panicked and forgot. Li Su Kuan scratched his head in embarrassment. Yes, I will remember this matter for now. There will be no next time. Song Luan nodded. What's the urgent matter? All right, Sect Master understands. Li Su Kuan bowed and said that Su Zhiqing secretly escaped from the mountain. Su Zhiqing, why did he escape from the mountain? The Fu puppet was stunned. Su Zhiqing had the best aptitude among all the disciples, and was also a disciple she taught with great care. Did he do something wrong? All right, Mistress understands, Li Su Kuan said anxiously. This Su Zhiqing is not an ordinary disciple. He is a disciple of the Su family in Xian City. Xian City's Su family. How? How is this possible? Song Luan was stunned, and his face turned pale. How did you know? Sect Master, Li Shukuan said with a sad face. Last night, this disciple and the others drank some fruit wine and were a little drunk. That Su Zhuqing accidentally let slip and talked about the Su family. At that time, this disciple and the others didn't care. Even now, this disciple still thinks that he was bragging. But Su Zhuqing's behavior today was a little strange. He often looked absent-minded. Just now, Lu Xian jokingly said a few words to him, and he immediately became angry. He knocked Lu Xian to the ground and rushed out of the mountain gate. Seeing this, I felt that what Su Zhuqing said last night must be true. I see. The Fu puppet gnashed her teeth and said, "No wonder that guy kept making mistakes and made me angry. It turns out that he was afraid that I would kill him with one palm. Husband, just you wait. I will chase after him and kill him. We must not let the Su family, who also refine yellow talismans, know that our heavenly talisman sect has the means to refine talismans." What? You told Su Zhuqing that our husband can refine talismans? Not only was Song Luan shocked, but Fu Zhu also blamed her. I saw that guy looking down on our heavenly talisman sect and couldn't help but tell him. The Fu puppet said shamefully, "I will go now." The Fu puppet knew the danger of this matter and hurriedly flew away. Fu Zhu, you also accompany the Fu puppet. You must not let the Su family know about this. Song Luan was also anxious and ordered. Yes, rest assured, husband. Fu Zhu nodded. Just as she was about to fly away, another panicked voice came from Li Su Kuan. Master's wife, it's bad, it's bad. Lu Xian, why are you panicking? Did someone barge into White Bamboo Mountain? Song Luan looked at the disciple with a bruised nose and purple eyes. His face showed a trace of panic, but he still asked calmly. Yes. How did Sect Master know? Lu Xian's injured face showed a trace of surprise. I didn't expect the Su family to come so early. The Fu puppet said hatefully, "It seems like they planned this from the start." No, it's not the Su family. Lu Xian argued. At this moment, two divine senses swept over and a voice laughed. Is this Xiao Hua of the Heavenly Talisman sect? Please come to the front mountain to meet us. Foundation Establishment Cultivator? Song Luan's face changed greatly. He barely cultivated his divine senses and could not reach far. How could he not know when two divine senses swept over? Lu Xian, you said it's not the Su family. Then who is it? Fu Zhu asked anxiously. Lu Xian said loudly, I heard that it's the Fu family of Jinhua Mountain. Fu Zhu and the Fu puppet were shocked, and their faces turned pale. Since the Fu family of Jinhua Mountain came, the divine senses must belong to Fu Yunbua. With Fu Yunbua's hatred for Song Luan and his desire to eliminate them, how could the three of them survive? Husband, we will hold them back for you. You should leave. The Fu puppet's face showed determination. Only when you are alive can our heavenly talisman sect have any value. You still want to leave? Fu Feng had already flown up to White Bamboo Mountain. There were no formations or restrictions on White Bamboo Mountain, so how could it stop these people? Elder Fu. The Fu puppet's beautiful eyes swept across and saw that most of the people were familiar. There were only two Foundation Establishment cultivators that she did not recognize. A hint of joy flashed in her eyes, and she hurriedly went up to greet them. Puppet was wondering who it was. Elder, you are here? Cough, cough, Fu puppet. You're no longer a disciple of the Fu family, so don't call me that. Fu Feng coughed a few times, feeling very uncomfortable in his heart. He had watched the Fu puppets and Fu Zhu grow up, especially the Fu puppets. Since they were young, they were very clever and lively, and were doted on by some elders. Fu Feng was one of them. Elder, the Fu puppet's mouth flattened and her eyes turned red. She was about to cry. You're already a cultivator in the 11th layer of Qi refining. Do you still think you are a teenager? Do you still think you are in Jinhua Mountain? Lu Yun sneered and glanced at Fu Feng. Lu Yun was a guest elder and was not very close to the disciples of the Fu family. This was one of the reasons why Fu Yunbua sent her here. Yes, Fu Zhu, Fu puppet, do you know your crime? Fu Feng understood Lu Yun's meaning and nodded. Fu Zhu and Fu Puppet have long regretted it. It is just that I have restricted their freedom, and they are unable to leave. Fu Feng rushed to say, "Husband." Fu Zhu and Fu Puppet shouted, "We are one with our husband. How can you say that we are forced?" "Shut up." Yin Qing Feng sneered. "It is not up to you to say what is true." Then, Yin Qing Feng turned his head and said, "Fu Feng, we have accompanied you to White Bamboo Mountain. The foundation establishment cultivator you mentioned did not appear. The Misty Cloud sect has done what we promised you. Moreover, the Misty Cloud sect has undergone a great change. We need to hurry back to the sect. We cannot stay here any longer." "Yes, thank you for your help, seniors." Fu Feng said goodbye to Yun Qing Feng. He knew that they had done what they promised. Yun Tingyu was dead, and the only connection between the Misty Cloud sect and the Golden Mount Hua had been lost. He can no longer keep them here. "Goodbye, seniors." "Yes." Yin Qing Feng waved his sleeves and prepared to leave. Fu Feng's eyes flashed, and he was happy. He was now at the peak of Qi refining level 12, which was the same as Fu Feng and the others. He was most afraid of these two foundation establishment cultivators. Once Yin Qing Feng and Yin Qing Lai left, he might be able to resist. However, just as Yin Qing Lai and Yin Qing Feng flew up, another two spiritual senses swept in from outside. A cold voice sounded, "Humph. Which fellow cultivator has also come to White Bamboo Mountain? Could it be that you want to make trouble with the Su family of Xian City?" "Who?" Yin Qing Lai and Yin Qing Feng were stunned. Their faces became alert. They clapped their hands and took out two magic weapons. They stopped in midair. Oh no! Fu Feng knew that Su Zhiqing's clansmen had come. He probably had no chance to escape. Chapter 2095. Yin Qing Lai and Yin Qing Feng looked up and saw two early-stage foundation establishment cultivators flying towards them. One of them was a fat man with big ears and a big body. His Taoist robe was rolled up, revealing his hairy arms. The other was a female cultivator. She was about 40 years old, and her skin was pale. Although she was not as beautiful as a painting, her small nose and delicate eyebrows made her look comfortable. "Su family of Xian City? How should I address you?" Yin Qing Feng frowned and cupped his hands. "I am Yin Qing Feng from Misty Cloud sect. This is I's junior brother, Yin Qing Lai." "Oh, so they're disciples of Misty Cloud sect. No wonder." The plump cultivator's eyes flashed with understanding. He nodded and said, "This humble Taoist is Su Hong." Then he looked at the female cultivator beside him and said, "This is Zhong Yejing from Zhong family of Yin City, Fairy Zhong. I greet the two of you." Zhong Yejing followed behind Su Hong. The two of them stopped a few feet away from Yin Qing Lai and Yin Qing Feng and greeted them. After the two sides greeted each other, there was a moment of silence. They seemed to be thinking about how to phrase their greetings. Yin Qing Lai looked at Yin Qing Feng and said loudly, "Both of you are cultivators from Meng Country. Why are you here at White Bamboo Mountain?" "That's strange. Fellow Yun, White Bamboo Mountain is Meng Country's spiritual mountain. Why can't we come here?" Su Hongyi raised his eyebrows and asked, "Since you two fellow Taoists are here, I have the same purpose as you." Yin Qing Lai and Yin Qing Feng looked at each other, a hint of understanding flashing in their eyes. They knew that their purpose was different from the other parties. In other words, Fu Feng was hiding some of the truth. They did not come to the White Bamboo Mountain to capture the three Fu family members who had betrayed the Golden Mount Hua and brought them back to the country of Xi. Yin Qing Feng glanced at the confused Fu Feng and then looked at the calm Su Hong. He smiled and said to Su Hong, "Since fellow Taoist Su knows that we have the same goal, then junior brother and I are one step ahead of you. Fellow Taoist Su, shouldn't you turn back?" "Humph. How could it be that simple?" Su Hong sneered. "Although I'm late, I've sent a Su clan disciple to spy in the Heavenly Talisman sect many years ago. Otherwise, how could I have known that there was an invisibility talisman here? Fellow Taoist Yun, your Misty Cloud sect is also a talisman crafting sect. I'm sure you know the importance of these invisibility talismans, right? Do you think I can turn back?" Invisibility Talisman? Yun Xinglai and Yun Xingfeng's faces lit up. They looked at each other and then at Fu Feng. Fu Feng's face was pale, and Lu Yun's mouth was bitter. They clearly understood. The Misty Cloud sect and this Su family were both talisman crafting aristocratic families. Their objective of this trip, to bring the talisman crafting method back to Mount Jinhua, was most likely impossible to achieve. Sure enough, when Su Hong saw that Yun Qingye's expression wasn't right, he immediately came to a realization and felt some regret in his heart. Could it be that they didn't do it for the invisibility talisman? Fellow Taoist Fu, Yun Qingfeng sneered. So this is the reason why fellow Taoist Fu came to White Bamboo Mountain. No wonder you wanted to invite us over. You wanted me to be your shield. Arresting the defectors is just a cover. I'll let the two seniors know. Fu Feng was a little flustered. Junior's main objective is to arrest these three disciples. The invisibility talisman isn't the main point. If the four seniors are willing, I'll make the decision. You can copy the crafting method of the invisibility talisman and take it away. Oh, when Yun Qinglai heard this, he was even more delighted. Without having to fight, he could obtain the crafting method of the invisibility talisman. Why not? Then, he looked at Su Hong and Zhong Yejing. Aha, I was invited by fellow Taoist Su. I'll listen to your orders. Zhong Yejing said with a smile. Of course, if fellow Taoist Su is willing to give it to I will accept it. Okay, we'll do as you say. Su Hong thought for a while and beamed with joy. Hearing this, Fu Feng's heart finally settled down. But at this moment, Su Hong spoke again. Haha, other than the invisibility talisman, I also have the Qingyan talisman. It's used by disciples at the peak of Qi refining stage 12. I wonder if the four seniors are interested. You have the Qingyan talisman? Yun Qinglai and the others were even more perceptive. They knew that the Qingyan talisman was a spirit talisman. It was a necessity for disciples in the cultivation sections. It was also one of the methods to nurture outstanding disciples in the foundation establishment stage. If Yun Qinglai had the Qingyan talisman, his magic power would be more than 30% stronger. The invisibility talisman and the Qingyan talisman are both with me, Su Hong said with a smile. If the four seniors want it, I can take it out from my hiding place at any time and let you copy it. However, I have a condition. Is it to kill these Qi refining cultivators, or to drive them away? Su Hong was the first to speak. His gaze had already landed on Lu Yun and Fu Feng. Of course it's to kill them. Leave no one alive, Su Hong said coldly. Husband, Fu Zhao and Fu Zhu were shocked. My two wives, if you let them go, your husband's life will be in danger. Su Hong explained. Although Fu Feng will let you go and perhaps bring your husband back to the Golden Mount Hua, will Fu Yunhua let your husband live? My wives, don't blame your husband for being ruthless. There are no cultivators in the Dawn Rain continent who are not ruthless. Fu Zhu and Fu Zhao were silent. They knew that Su Hong was telling the truth. All right, Su Hong laughed and clapped his hands. Just as he was about to take out his magic weapon, Fu Feng, Lu Yun, and the others were scared out of their wits. Fellow Taoist Su, Yun Qingfeng frowned and said, Please wait for a moment. What? Fellow Taoist Yun, do you have something else to say? Su Hong said coldly. Zhong Yejing, who was beside him, followed Su Hong's gaze and pressed her hand on her storage bag. Yes, I have received the sect master's dying order to send Fu Feng and the others safely to the White Bamboo Mountain. Although I have already completed the sect master's task, but if I take their lives now, wouldn't it be a disgrace to my sect master in the afterlife? Yin Qingfeng said, In my opinion, why don't we drive Fu Feng and the others away and make them swear a heart oath that they will never come to the White Bamboo Mountain to look for Su Hong? Wouldn't that be perfect? Sect Master Yun's dying order? Su Hong rolled his eyes, feeling a little troubled. If it weren't for some dying order, he would have just fought with Yun Qinglai and the others. However, the sect master's dying order was a great honor for a sect. If Su Hong forced himself to fight with Yun Qinglai and the others, It would mean that he was going against the entire Misty Clouds sect. The Misty Clouds sect was nothing, but if the entire sect went against the Su family, it would be really troublesome. He wouldn't be able to explain it to his family. Sect Master Fu, what do you think? Su Hong looked at him with a smile. This old man can make a decision for you. These aura refining cultivators absolutely won't cause you any trouble in the future. Furthermore, if you manage to avoid today's matter, you can very well move your sect to another place. How could these cultivators possibly find you? Actually, let me tell you, you should cultivate secretly. Why are you dreaming about becoming a sect master? This isn't a heavy burden that an aura refining cultivator can undertake. Chapter 2096. This. Songda hesitated. What? You don't want to listen to me? Su Hong's face turned cold. Then I'll leave right now. I don't want the Qingyun talisman or the invisibility talisman. I'd like to see if you can keep those two talismans. Can you keep your life? Fine. Songda gritted his teeth. I'll listen to you, Senior Su. Please help me. A wise man submits to circumstances. According to Zhiqing, sect leader Fu also wants to achieve something big. There's no need to be so calculative over such a small matter. Su Hong smiled. Then, he looked at Fu Feng and asked, What about you? Do you want to make things difficult for me? Or do you want to obediently swear an oath? We're willing to swear an oath. Fu Feng and Lu Yin looked at each other and smiled bitterly. What could they do? These were Foundation establishment cultivators. Even the Fu family master couldn't defeat them. Therefore, they smiled apologetically and said, We won't come to White Bamboo Mountain again, and we won't look for Tsonda and the others. And we won't let them have any ideas about the Qingyun talisman and invisibility talisman of our heavenly talisman sect. Tsonda added, Good. Fu Feng nodded and swore an oath. Not bad. These little guys are sensible. Zhong Yejing nodded. Otherwise, I would be in a difficult position. Then can we leave now? Fu Feng and Lu Yin looked at each other bitterly. In front of 4 Foundation establishment cultivators, they were indeed little guys. This trip to the Ming Kingdom was really fruitless. However, being able to see Fu Zhu and Fu Ao alive and well, and their cultivation improved greatly, wasn't it a gain for Fu Feng? Go. Su Hong waved his hand. Go back directly. Don't make any other plans. Yes, we don't dare. Fu Feng and the others were overjoyed. They looked at Fu Zhu and the others and were about to fly away. At this time, a lazy voice sounded. What's wrong? You're leaving now? Why do I feel that it's inappropriate? Who is it? When Su Hong saw that there were more cultivators approaching, he flew into a rage out of humiliation. When he looked up, he saw a young man and a young woman gradually appear on the foothills about 100 feet away from them. Weren't they Xiao Hua and Xue Xue? Xiao Hua, Yin Qinglian, and Yun Qingfeng's faces revealed extremely shocked expressions. It was as if they'd seen a ghost. They practically didn't dare believe that Xiao Hua, who'd been killed by Yun Tanyu, would actually make an appearance here. Xiao Hua, an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator? Fu Feng and Lu Yin naturally recognized Xiao Hua. Their expressions were complicated. Other than shock, there was also envy, jealousy, and uneasiness. When Xiao Hua escaped from Jinhua Mountain, Fu Feng was present. He didn't think that Xiao Hua could escape from the hands of 4 Foundation establishment cultivators. He didn't even think that Xiao Hua would appear in the distant Ming country with an early Foundation establishment cultivator. After all, Xiao Hua was only at the 5th or 6th level of qi refining. Xiao Hua, you actually... Song Guang found it even more inconceivable. As he made all sorts of guesses, the panic on his face turned into realization. Fu Zhu and Fu Ai covered their mouths in shock, their eyes wide open. Invisibility talisman? When Su Hong saw Xiao Hua, who was also in the early stage of the Foundation building realm, and Xue Xue, who was at the peak of the 12th layer of the aura refining realm, he didn't pay them any mind. He glanced at Yin Qinglian, frowned, and sneered. Fellow Taoist, which sect or family are you from? Why are you sneaking around here with invisibility talismans? You talk too much. Who do you think you are? How do you talk to this Xiao like this? Xiao Hua's face revealed a layer of killing intent. He waved his Taoist robe, and a fierce force came out of it. In an instant, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth around Su Hong was confined. Su Hong was shocked. He felt as if he was completely surrounded by a layer of solid rock. He couldn't even move his limbs. Moreover, the true essence around his body was also confined. He couldn't use even a trace of magic power. He was very clear in his heart that Xiao Hua's magic power was higher than his by more than a level. Not only that, Xiao Hua's figure immediately flew to Su Hong's side with an inconceivable speed in the blink of an eye. Raising his hand, he slapped Su Hong's face twice. When the first slap landed, Su Hong's body flashed with brilliance. It seemed that the defensive yellow talisman was broken by Xiao Hua's hand. Zhong Yejing was shocked. She clapped her hands, and a strange magic tool appeared in her hands. If it was me, I would just quietly watch. I wouldn't invite trouble to myself. Xiao Hua didn't even look at her and said coldly. Then he raised his foot again. With a bang, he kicked Su Hong to a corner of the foothill. Blood immediately flowed out from the corner of Su Hong's mouth. But contrary to everyone's expectations, Su Hong struggled to stand up. He bowed very respectfully. Junior was wrong. Please give me pointers, Senior Xiao. This Xiao isn't your senior. Xiao Hua's gaze swept over Su Hong and said coldly, This Xiao doesn't want to see someone bullying the weak and forcefully snatching other people's things, especially since this thing is what this Xiao owes others. Saying this, Xiao Hua clapped his hands and took out a few jade slips from his storage pouch. He threw them to Su Hong and said, Su Hong, these are the jade slips I gave you that day. I'll return them to you now. Take good care of them and properly teach the disciples. Properly support the Heavenly Talisman sect. Don't worry if any news is leaked out and someone with a higher cultivation than this Xiao comes to find you. The Xiao will first exterminate the Su family, Zhong family, and Misty Cloud sect. Yes, this junior understands. Su Hong was overjoyed. He received the divine accumulation talisman and the jade slips and bowed in thanks. Yes, this junior understands. Su Hong bitterly smiled and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He smiled apologetically and said, This junior will definitely keep this matter secret. If anything happens to the Heavenly Talisman sect, please send a message to this Su. If it is within my power, this Su will definitely not refuse. In the future, this Fu will definitely pay a visit to Senior Su. Su Hong was very good at currying favor. Then Xiao Hua looked at Zhong Yejing. Zhong Yejing bitterly smiled and hurriedly said, This junior only wanted to exchange for a small piece of Qian Mo's secret stone from fellow Taoist Su. That's why I was invited to help. This junior swears that this junior will definitely not leak it. Xiao Hua's heart moved. He immediately nodded and no longer paid attention to Zhong Yejing. Senior, Xiao. Yun Qinglian and Yun Qingfeng's expressions were complicated. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and said coldly, This Xiao and your Misty Cloud sect can be considered as having a grudge. Originally, this Xiao wanted to wait until this matter was over before going to look for Yun Tingyu. However, I just heard that your sect leader has already passed away. This Xiao is a bit puzzled. That day, Yun Tingyu was full of vitality. Why did he suddenly pass away? Isn't this because of Senior? Yun Qingfeng's eyes narrowed. However, when he thought about how Xiao Hua was not at a disadvantage against the four of them, how could he have any thoughts of resistance? He then transmitted his voice and told Xiao Hua what he had done. Oh, so that's how it is. Xiao Hua nodded, the expression on his face softening slightly. After pondering for a moment, he said, Since Sect Master Yin had an epiphany before his death and actually had the thought of repentance, and even urged his sect to do more good deeds, then this Xiao will let you all go. Many thanks for Senior's mercy. Yin Qinglian and Yun Qingfeng's anxious hearts finally relaxed. With their strength, they really didn't have any thoughts of resistance. It was inevitable that they still had doubts in their hearts, but Would they say it out loud? And you all? Xiao Hua turned to look at Fu Feng and Lu Yun. Senior Xiao, if there's anything, please instruct us. Fu Feng and Lu Yun were scared witless. Even Su Hong, a Foundation Establishment senior, was sent flying by Xiao Hua's kick. When he stood up, he didn't even dare to be angry and humiliated. He even wanted to thank Xiao Hua for not killing him. How could they have the slightest intention to rebel? And this Xiao was originally a bit embarrassed. Xiao Hua nodded. The matter between you all is an old grudge of the Fu clan. It's not about who is right and who is wrong. Everyone has their own reasons. However, since Elder Fu has already vowed not to cause any more trouble, this Xiao will have an easier time. However, Elder Fu, please go back and report to Fu Yunbua that this matter will end here. This Xiao will also not pursue the matters in Jinhua Mountain. Consider it a kind of exchange. Yes, this junior understands. This junior will pass on Senior Zhao's words to the clan leader. Fu Feng hurriedly bowed and said, "Good." Xiao Hua nodded. After Xiao Hua finished speaking, Fu Feng hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "This junior thanks Senior Xiao for his kindness. Since this matter has already reached a satisfactory conclusion under Senior Zhao's guidance, this Fu is untalented. Please come to my Heavenly Talisman Sex guest hall and let this junior play the role of a host." Hee, there's no hurry. Xiao Hua waved his hand and looked at another mountain. He smiled and said, "Fellow Taoists, isn't it too late to leave now?" There's someone else? Su Hong, Yun Qinglian, and the others were even more shocked. Fu Feng's eyes flashed with understanding. She looked at Xiao Hua and then at the place Xiao Hua was pointing at. "Ha! Fellow Taoist Xiao is really amazing." A very abnormal voice sounded. Then, just like Xiao Hua, two cultivators slowly appeared in a certain place. They were completely enthralled. The cultivator in front cupped his hands and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, we're just passing by. We definitely have no other intentions. We'll leave immediately and won't delay fellow Taoist matter." "Fellow Taoist, are you just passing by?" Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and looked at that cultivator with confidence. He said coldly, "Fellow Taoist, if you don't take down the Mi Lu and make a hard oath, how can I let you go?" "Fellow Taoist Xiao, don't push us too far." That cultivator also said angrily, "Don't think that just because you have a bit of cultivation, you can be arrogant. If this old man takes down the Mi Lu, do you still want to live?" Ha! Xiao Hua clapped his hands. The soaring dragon shears flashed with a golden light and flew into the air. Like lightning, it slashed towards the cultivator. This Xiao wants to see who will be able to kill who. Humph! That cultivator clapped his hands and took out a fan-like magic treasure. Under the urging of his magic power, a hurricane was born from the fan-like magic treasure. As the cultivator waved his hand, that hurricane actually turned into dozens of sword-like wind blades and stabbed towards Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua felt the sharp fluctuation of spiritual power on the wind blades and the astonishing magic power contained in the wind blades. He couldn't help but be a bit stunned. He thought, Foundation Establishment late-stage cultivation? Could it be that this young master guessed correctly? This guy really isn't Xiao Mingwei? If it's not him, then who is it? However, if a mere Foundation Establishment late-stage cultivator wants to escape from this young master's hands, that's simply a dream. "Break!" Xiao Hua sneered. He pointed his hand, and the soaring dragon shears flashed with a golden light. Like cutting silk, it easily cut the numerous wind blades in half. The golden light didn't even lose its momentum and slashed towards the fan-like magic treasure. Chapter 2097. Such a tyrannical magic treasure, such a strong magic power. That cultivator clearly understood Su Hong's situation and knew that he had underestimated Xiao Hua. He was slightly surprised, but he still did not panic. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of life essence, sprinkling it on the palm leaf fan. The palm leaf fan shone brilliantly, and with a schwa sound, the brilliance collided with the soaring dragon scissors. The cultivator sucked in a breath of cold air, and with a wave of his hand, the palm leaf fan fell into his hand. However, there was already a faint crack on the palm leaf fan. It was actually a mark left by the soaring dragon scissors. Rise! Xiaohua simply didn't give the Miyao cultivators a chance to breathe. His hands continuously rubbed, and two samadhi true fire walls appeared from his hands. In the blink of an eye, the two Miyao cultivators were surrounded. Samadhi true fire. The cultivator was stunned. His voice was concealed by the palm leaf fan, but it still revealed his panic. Fellow Taoist, do you really want me to kill you? Xiaohua's tone was cold, and it seemed to penetrate the cultivator's heart. Along with this voice, Xiaohua once again clapped his hands, and a rumbling sound like millions of bees was heard. It was also like a huge hill slowly rising. Xiaohua actually took out the second magic treasure, the cloud-suppressing seal. Above the cloud-suppressing seal, a bronze brilliance bloomed, and the surrounding spiritual energy quickly condensed, faintly forming a veil. Su Hong and the others were once again shocked in their hearts. Xiaohua really opened their eyes again and again. As long as it was a cultivator, even if it was a Jindan stage senior, being able to use one magic treasure and one magic tool at a time was already rare and commendable. Xiaohua actually took out two magic tools at once. It seemed that each magic treasure was more powerful than the previous one. Is this still the poor rogue cultivator from that year? Not only did the people who knew Xiaohua the earliest have such thoughts, but even Fu Feng, Lu Yun, and the others also had such thoughts. In just a few decades, Xiaohua was actually so powerful, so fierce. On the other hand, they themselves did not seem to have changed. In an instant, Fu Feng recalled in her heart. Fortunately, she didn't seem to have done anything to offend Xiaohua. Looking at the Miho cultivator again, seeing Xiaohua use the cloud-suppressing seal, the face of the Miho cultivator was a little pale, but at the same time, a kind of arrogance was aroused in his eyes. The cultivator stretched out his hand and patted on his own head. Woo! The roar of a beast was like an earthquake, and a faint shadow of a black bear about 5 feet tall flashed out from his back. It was actually the black bear Dharma body. As soon as the black bear Dharma body appeared, a fierce aura was released, as if the pressure of a foundation establishment late-stage cultivator directly rushed toward Xiaohua. Fellow Taoist, if you want to die, release this avatar. Xiaohua did not panic at all. He also did not release his pressure. Before the aura of the black bear celestial body could suppress him, a cold light flashed in his eyes. He seemed to be mumbling something. The Miho cultivator suddenly clutched his head and curled up as if someone had struck him hard in the head. He quickly withdrew the avatar he had just released, and his fierce aura was withdrawn as well. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please spare my life. I will get rid of this Miho. The Miho cultivator's voice was hoarse. He hurriedly waved his hand and begged for mercy, removing the Miho from his body. It's actually Qiumingwei? Xiaohua widened his eyes and looked at this fat cultivator. Qiumingwei's black and fat body was definitely comparable to Su Hong's. Xiaohua was more curious about the other Miho cultivator. However, when Liao Xinlan took the Miho cultivator, Xiaohua's eyes fell even more. It really is the foundation establishment early stage Liao Xinlan. This is somewhat inconceivable. Xiaohua almost murmured. How did Liao Xinlan reach foundation establishment? Her previous cultivation. Qiumingwei, Liao Xinlan, Yinda, Fu Feng, and the others almost moaned as if this was not White Bamboo Mountain but Golden Mount Hua. Several people of the Fu clan's grievances were actually gathered in the distant Meng country. Junior greets Senior Xiao. Liao Xuanlan's face was somewhat pale and somewhat unwilling. She hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and bowed. Xiaohua flicked his sleeve. You and I are old acquaintances. Don't be too polite. Greetings, fellow Taoist Xiao. Qiumingwei put away all the magic treasures, and Xiaohua also put away the Samadhi True Fire. He stepped forward and greeted, "I really didn't expect an unknown Qi refinement disciple from back then would have a cultivation far surpassing me." Yes, Golden Mount Hua's Xiao Hua was simply an ant in Xiaoming Wei's eyes. He even joined hands with Fu Yunbua to help the 3 cultivation sects around Xiao Hua. But now, Xiao Hua killed him without any effort at all, especially Xiao Hua's soul stab at the end, without anyone noticing. It suddenly poked his weak spot. He no longer dared to have any thoughts of resistance in his heart. He believed that if he really released his Dharma body, Xiao Hua would definitely use an unimaginable method to kill him. You're just a little cultivator who was chased by others until you pissed your pants," Xiao Hua said coldly. That day, I felt that the 3 cultivation sects were too much of a bully, actually sending 4 foundation establishment cultivators. Xiaoming Wei smiled apologetically. However, since fellow Taoist Xiao is so talented, even if they send 10 more, I'm afraid it still won't work. Although Xiaoming Wei had some flattery in his words, he was speaking from the bottom of his heart. He really couldn't believe that Xiao Hua actually had a cultivation comparable to a golden core cultivator in just a few decades. How could he endure this? Especially when he used a special method to forcibly enter the late stage of foundation establishment. So it's Senior Liao who came. Songda didn't miss the opportunity to bow and say, "Presumably Senior Liao still has some misunderstandings towards me. Since Senior Xiao is here, this junior will clearly explain the cause of this matter. Let Senior Xiao uphold justice for us." Uphold justice for what? Liao Xuanlan's heart was bitter as she thought to herself. Xiao Hua said it clearly just now that he supports the Heavenly Talisman sect. With the support of this golden core cultivator, how many cultivators on the Dawn Rain continent will disturb the Heavenly Talisman sect? Without waiting for Liao Xianlan to speak, Songda raised his hand and said, "This isn't the place to talk. This junior invites seniors to sit in the guest hall. Senior Xiao, we won't stay any longer. Senior already knows why we came. Moreover, there's still a drought around Yi City. It's better for us to go back and help." Yin Qinglai and Yin Qingfeng bowed and said. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and nodded. "That's good. This Xiao will remember what you did. If anything happens to the Misty Cloud sect, this Xiao will definitely help." Yin Qinglai and Yin Qingfeng were overjoyed and bowed to express their thanks. "All right, there's also some good seeds that this Xiao collected. Take them. If you see a place where the rice can't germinate, give these good seeds to them to cultivate. Remember." Xiao Hua took out a small storage pouch from his bosom and handed it over. Chapter 2098. Yes, this junior understands. Senior Zhao's compassion truly makes this junior admire you. Yin Qingfeng took the storage pouch and left. As for how they would report to Misty Cloud's sect master when they return, that was not Xiao Hua's concern. Junior and the others will not stay any longer. Su Hong and Zhong Yejing also bowed and said. Unexpectedly, Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "Fellow Taoist Su, please wait a moment. I heard from fellow Taoist Zhong that you have a small piece of Qianmo secret stone." Su Hong nodded and clapped his hand, taking out a fingernail-sized Qianmo secret stone and handed it over. He smiled apologetically and said, "This junior only has this small piece. If senior needs it, please take it." Zhong Yejing at the side was speechless. She was careful, said endless good words, and even accompanied Su Hong to help out, just to exchange this Qianmo secret stone with him. But Xiao Hua's one sentence, and Su Hong immediately gave it to him. This made her feel very uncomfortable. Xiao Hua took it and clapped his hand again, taking out many spirit stones and handing them to Su Hong. He smiled and said, "How can I take fellow Taoist things for free? Are these spirit stones enough?" Su Hong's divine sense swept over, his face already showing joy. Nowadays, spirit stones in Dawn Rain continent were gradually becoming scarce. Xiao Hua's spirit stones were more than enough. Su Hong took the spirit stones, cupped his hands, and flew up. At this time, Xiao Hua spoke again. Fellow Taoist Zhong, please wait a moment. This Xiao has something to ask. Senior Xiao, please speak. Zhong Yejing was a bit surprised. She definitely had nothing to do with today's matter. She really could not think of what Xiao Hua wanted to ask her. But after Xiao Hua transmitted a few words, Zhong Yejing's face showed a serious expression, then a burst of ecstasy, nodding vigorously. And, since that's the case, fellow Taoist Zhong, please stay. This Xiao will discuss this matter with fellow Taoist Zhong later. Xiao Hua said without any doubt. Yes, Junior understands. Zhong Yejing smiled and said to Su Hong, fellow Taoist Su, please go first. Okay, Su Hong nodded, not daring to ask anything, and flew away. Let's go. We will go to the guest hall to see the recent situation of Heavenly Talisman sect. Xiao Hua smiled and said, please lead the way. Yes, Senior Xiao, Senior Qiu, this way please. His face was full of joy. The grudges between Qiu Mingwei and the Fu family of Jinhua had come to an end today. With the support of his old friend Xiao Hua, it was impossible for his Heavenly Talisman school not to prosper. The Heavenly Talisman sect's guest hall was actually very simple and crude. It was a hall that was made after the cave was tidied up. However, Xiao Hua didn't mind at all. He looked around with interest, then smiled again. Sect Master Fu, your welcoming hall isn't small, but there aren't enough chairs inside. You're not qualified to be a sect master. Hee, Senior Xiao is right. With a big smile on his face, Song Ying called out to Fu Zhu and Fu Puppet to prepare tea and other things. He said, Junior Heavenly Talisman sect is just a cover. Junior Heavenly Talisman sect is only a small success in Qi refining. Everyone else is at the 11th layer of Qi refining. The only disciples we have are either children or low-level cultivators with poor aptitudes. This junior had never thought that so many seniors would return at once. Today's grand occasion is something that this junior has dreamt of even in his dreams. This junior has prepared for 50 years before it can appear. Senior Zhao's arrival has made this junior's dream come true. This junior is truly grateful. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, you don't need to trouble yourself. We'll just sit on the floor. It's no trouble, no trouble, Song Ying said anxiously. Fu Feng looked at Lu Yun and also said anxiously, there's no need, Senior Xiao. We'll send the Fu clan's disciples out to have a good chat with the Heavenly Talisman sect disciples. We'll just talk. And this junior will also go out. Lu Yun smiled and waved her hand. Fu Shan and the other disciples followed her out of the welcoming hall. Senior Xiao, please take a seat. Song Ying arranged the seats and respectfully invited Xiao Hua to take a seat. Xiao Hua looked around. Song Ying actually only placed one jade chair in the center. The other chairs were placed on both sides of the chair. The flattery in his eyes was self-evident. And Xiao Hua nodded and said to Qiu Mingwei with a smile, it would be impolite of me to refuse. Of course. Fellow Taoist Xiao, please. Qiu Mingwei's face was a bit embarrassed. He was at the late stage of foundation establishment, and his cultivation was the highest among them. Xiao Hua was only at the early stage of foundation establishment. However, Qiu Mingwei still understood that Xiao Hua's appearance was somewhat discounted. Xiao Hua took a seat first. Qiu Mingwei, Liao Xianlan, Zhong Yejing, and Fu Feng took the guest seats. Song Ying, Fu Zhu, and Fu Ai sat on the left side of the main seat. Shui was very curious and kept staring at Fu Zhu and Fu Ai. Xiao Hua drank a mouthful of spirit tea and said with a smile, I'm quite familiar with the grudges between the two generations of the Fu clan. I was also involved in it a few decades ago. Elder Fu has already made a hard oath and explained it on behalf of Fu Yunbua. I won't say anything more. I only want to say one thing. It's up to you whether you want to listen or not. Senior Xiao, please enlighten us. Song Ying and Fu Feng hurriedly stood up and bowed. Both sides are from the Fu clan. No matter if it's Shi or Ming, the bloodline is the same. Xiao Hua said after pondering for a while, if both sides fight, both sides will suffer. Actually, it's not that you haven't thought about it, but because of the hatred in your heart, you feel that the other side won't forgive you. That's why you're in a stalemate. Just now, this Xiao clearly saw that Elder Fu is very fond of Fu Zhu and Fu Ma. In the future, the direct disciples of Talisman Gate will also be the children of these two people. Elder Fu may not necessarily not cherish them. Therefore, this Xiao hopes that your two families will take a few steps back and consider this matter carefully. Song Ning glanced at Fu Feng and didn't say anything. After all, he was the weaker side. Junior will definitely pass on your words to the clan head. Fu Feng said with a smile. Junior is only an elder after all. I can't promise Senior anything. And this is just a small thought of mine. Xiao Hua waved his hand. Then, he looked at Liao Xianlan and said, Fellow Taoist Liao, I'm also clear about your grudges. It seems to be in the Fu clan of Jinhua Mountain, right? Yes. Liao Xianlan bit her lips and replied like a mosquito. Hee, I don't dare to talk about who is right and who is wrong. I'm sure fellow Taoist Chiu will not talk about it with you. Xiao Hua nodded and said, I just think that since you want to take revenge, you should clearly distinguish between gratitude and grudges. Don't drag unrelated people into this. Moreover, I won't hide it from you fellow Taoists. What I hate the most is using grudges as a cover to do things that harm others for their own benefit. It's against reason and nature. Liao Xuanlan's face flushed red. She lowered her head deeply and didn't dare to say a word. Fellow Taoist Liao, you and I can be considered old friends. On Jinhua Mountain, we also look after each other. I won't say anything more today, and I don't want to pursue this matter anymore. Fellow Taoist is also a foundation establishment cultivator. The road to heaven is in front of fellow Taoist. I hope fellow Taoist Liao can take care of yourself. Xiao Hua said with a gloomy and cold tone. Yes, Junior understands. For some reason, Liao Xuanlan's face turned pale. She murmured, even if Junior wants to improve her cultivation in the future, it will be extremely difficult. That's why Junior has evil thoughts. I want to obtain Fu Clan Head's yellow talisman technique. Oh, Xiao Hua stared blankly. He glanced at Liao Xianlan and then looked at Qiu Mingwei. Cough, cough. Qiu Mingwei's face showed a trace of embarrassment. He knew Xiao Hua was going to ask, so he didn't hide it and told him the reason. It turned out that Qiu Mingwei had obtained a secret technique in his early years. It was the widely rumored human cauldron furnace technique of plucking yin to replenish yang. This human cauldron furnace technique was the same as dual cultivation. They both relied on the balance of yin and yang to achieve a breakthrough in cultivation. However, dual cultivation was based on the balance of yin and yang. It was beneficial for both men and women. However, the human cauldron furnace technique was different. The male cultivator was the main cultivator, and the female cultivator was the auxiliary cultivator. The female cultivator could certainly benefit, but there were more injuries. Liao Xianlan was in such a situation. That day, Qiu Mingwei met Liao Xianlan and saw that her constitution was different. It was actually compatible with his human cauldron furnace technique. He wanted to make Liao Xianlan his human cauldron. However, the human cauldron furnace technique was also voluntary. Therefore, Liao Xianlan set revenge as her condition. Of course, Qiu Mingwei would not blindly compromise. He only agreed to help her once. After all, he had to deal with a cultivator family. But that day, Liao Xuanlan's revenge was blocked by Xiao Hua. Qiu Mingwei saw that Jinhua Mountain was involved in the grievances of the three sects, so he did not dare to force Fu Yinbu too much. He only brought Liao Xianlan out from Jinhua Mountain. When Qiu Mingwei failed to break through to Foundation Establishment late stage, he had no choice but to copulate with Liao Xianlan. Using Liao Xianlan as his human cauldron, he forcibly broke through to Foundation Establishment late stage. Liao Xianlan also benefited from this and directly entered Foundation Establishment early stage. However, the consequence of this kind of forcible advancement was that Liao Xuanlan's cultivation could only remain at Foundation Establishment early stage for the rest of her life. Oh, so that's how it is. Xiao Hua suddenly understood. He secretly said, No wonder Liao Xianlong suddenly entered Foundation establishment. This young master used this to guess these two people. It was impossible to guess correctly. Hee, fellow Xiao, this is my secret technique. I ask fellow Xiao to accept it. Consider it a small token of my appreciation. Xiao Mingwei said. He stretched out his hand and took out a jade slip and handed it to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua stared blankly. He didn't have such thoughts. Knowing that Xiao Mingwei had misunderstood, he unconsciously turned his head to look at Xue Xue. Xue Xue was currently looking down and didn't even look at him. Many thanks, fellow Taoist Xiao. Xiao Hua's eyes turned slightly, and he reached out to receive it. Xiao Mingwei was delighted in his heart when he saw Xiao Hua receive the jade slip, and he stood up and said, since the enmity between my wife and sect master Fu has been exposed, then I won't stay here any longer. Farewell. All right then. Xiao Hua stood up and returned the greeting. He casually said, actually, there's no harm in trying out Gung Mountain's Liao clan's pill refining technique. Even head Fu was able to establish the Heavenly Talisman sect. Since fellow Taoist Liao has fellow Taoist Qiu's support, what's there to fear? Liao Xuanlong's face lit up with joy. She bowed toward Xiao Hua and said, Senior Zhao shout was like being enlightened. This junior was blindly thinking of inheriting Gung Mountain's Liao family's talisman crafting technique and neglected my husband's help. In the future, this junior will try to refine pills. If I succeed, I still have to thank Senior for his kindness today. Chapter 2099. Haha, no problem, no problem. Xiao Hua laughed casually. He was just interested in the Liao family's alchemy technique, but he didn't know if it was complete or not. After Qiu Mingwei and Liao Xianlong left, only Zhong Yejing, an outsider, was left. The others were familiar with each other in Jinhua Mountain. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Fellow Taoist Zhong, please wait outside for a while. I have something to discuss with Master Fu and the others. I will go with you to the Zhong family immediately. Yes, I understand. Zhong Yejing replied with a smile before walking out of the room. Seeing that there were no outsiders in the guest hall, Xiao Hua asked his last doubt. Master Fu, I still have some doubts. Do I have to ask? Senior Xiao, what's sect Master Fu? You could just call me Fu. Sonda smiled and said, my heavenly talisman sect's talisman technique and cultivation method are all from Senior Xiao. Why are you so polite? Xiao Hua shook his head. Those are all Master Fu's own. They have nothing to do with me. I have some doubts. Didn't Fu Yinbo say that Master Fu, Fu Zhu, and Fu Ho? Oh, so that's it. With a sudden realization, he looked at his two twin wives with a very sweet look in his eyes. He then transmitted a few words to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's face showed a look of realization. He nodded and said with a smile, since you're not directly related by blood, that's the best. This Xiao's wives have been thinking about this all the way and have often sighed for you. So the confused cultivator in the Black Forest is Senior Xiao? Fu Feng had been suspicious and asked hurriedly. Yes. Xiao Hua smiled and said, I met Sonda in Shi country and heard that he came to Meng country. Since Elder Fu also came, I naturally came too. I know how bad it is to owe someone something. That's because Senior Xiao has a noble character. If it was someone else, he would have taken it himself. Sonda smiled apologetically. Well, Elder Fu, since the grudge has been revealed, the disciples of Jinhua Mountain will stay in White Bamboo Mountain for a few more days. Xiao Hua smiled and said, Now, I have a few words to say to Master Fu. Yes, I'll go out now. Fu Feng said with a smile. I also hope that the Fu clan can flourish and prosper. After everyone had left, Xiao Hua's expression turned serious as he said, That's right. Listen carefully. The reason why I supported you earlier was to help you eliminate the enemies in front of you. It can be considered as giving your heavenly talisman sect a buffer. This Xiao has never thought of blocking your heavenly talisman sect. Although Song Cheng was depressed in his heart, he didn't show it on his face. He cupped his hands and said, Junior understands Senior's painstaking efforts. For Senior to take care of Junior like this, Junior is already endlessly grateful. Yes, after all, you and I are fated to meet. Xiaohua nodded. Sect Master Fu has used this Zhao's name to fend off strong enemies in the beginning. However, if Sect Master Fu does anything shameless, this Xiao will definitely not show mercy. Thank you, Senior. An overjoyed expression appeared on Tsongda's face as he said, actually, if Senior Xiao is willing, this Junior's Heavenly Talisman sect can let Senior become the sect master. Ha, there's no need. Xiaohua flicked his sleeves. Why would he care about a small sect like this? Then, he waved his hand and took out a storage pouch. He handed it to Tsongda and said, this Xiao didn't know that Sect Master Fu had established a sect, so I don't have any gifts. Just take this as a token of my sincerity. Hee, there's no need. Tsongda politely declined, but he still took the pouch. However, when he opened the storage pouch, he couldn't help but be stunned. He muttered, Foundation establishment pills, spirit stones, spirit herbs, and some rice. Tsongda raised his head. His eyes were filled with sincerity as he said, Senior Xiao, this Junior won't speak empty words. These things are too precious to Junior and the Heavenly Talisman sect. Moreover, they are too important. This Junior didn't expect Senior to give Junior so many things. This Junior really can't express the excitement in my heart right now. Forget it. Since you don't speak empty words, this Xiao won't speak any empty words either. Xiaohua patted Tsongda's shoulder and said, you and I are old acquaintances. In the past, you also took care of this Xiao. Since this Xiao can help you, why wouldn't I? This Xiao also knows that you have great talent and great ambitions. You want to achieve great things on Xiaoyu continent. Today, I've said many times that everything you do must be worthy of your conscience. Yes, this Junior will definitely remember. Tsongda said, this Junior will personally take the seeds in this storage pouch with my wife. This Junior will definitely complete Senior's task properly. Good. This Xiao will take his leave now. Xiaohua stared at Tsongda. He didn't know what to think. I hope you can keep your words. Senior, you're leaving now? Tsongda said anxiously. You won't stay for a few more days? This Junior still wants to listen to Senior's teachings. Xiaohua understood Tsongda's thoughts. He muttered himself for a moment and said, Tsongda, it's not that this Xiao doesn't want to help you build your foundation. You also saw that my wife is also at the peak of the 12th layer of qi refining. She also hasn't built her foundation. However, building one's foundation is a fated chance. Everyone is different, so there's nothing special to learn from. And this Xiao's foundation building is also different from others, so there's nothing I can teach you. Tsongda's face was filled with disappointment, but he still had a smile on his face. This Junior is already happy that Senior Xiao can think of this. As he said this, Tsongda clapped his hands and took out a worn-out silk cloth. He handed it over to Xiaohua and said, Senior Xiao has done so much for this Junior. This Junior really is nothing to repay. This Junior also guessed that although Senior's cultivation base is already at the core formation realm, this Junior and the others can still sense that Senior cultivation base is at the foundation establishment realm. I'm afraid this is the reason for this Junior's so-called crossing the sea of deception cultivation technique. This is a record of the cultivation technique. It belongs to the Senior who raised this Junior. Uncle Xiang, this is the Senior's legacy. This Junior treasures this item very much. However, if this Junior doesn't give this item to Senior, this Junior will feel apologetic. Oh, is that so? Xiaohua knew that there were some flaws in this crossing the sea of deception, so he already had the idea to make up for it. After receiving the item, he carefully looked at it and nodded. I know your intentions. I'll just make a copy of this cultivation technique. I'll leave this item to you. If it's the complete cultivation technique, Senior Xiao can just make a copy. This Junior will definitely keep this item. Tsongda waved his hand and said, but this silk cloth is damaged. If there's something wrong with the copy, I'm afraid it'll be detrimental to Senior's cultivation. Senior should just keep it. Hearing this, Xiaohua looked at Songda's sincere expression and made a decision in his heart. He nodded and said, since it's like this Xiao will accept it. Then, Xiaohua put away the silk cloth and walked out of the guest hall. He saw Shui whispering to Fu Zhu and Fu Puppet. They seemed to be very close. Shui heard Xiaohua coming out and hurriedly went over to greet him. Let's go, Xiaohua said with a smile. Everything has been explained. The Heavenly Talisman sect and Jinhua Mountain's Fu clan can be considered to have a good start. In the future, everything will be under Fu clan's control. If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for it. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.